Good evening and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. The public can attend tonight's meeting in person at the George DeSiero City and County Buildings Council Chambers located at 1 Tacoma Drive, or watch live on Channel 8 and through live streaming on Broomfield's website, broomfield.org/live. The public may also participate in public comment either in person or by calling 855-695-3744 and pressing *3 to be placed in the queue for comment. Screeners will ask callers for their first and last name, neighborhood, and the agenda item the caller would like to comment on. If you'd like to speak on more than one item on tonight's agenda, you'll need to press *3 each time to be placed back in the queue for comment. Public comment will be limited to 90 minutes total per item. The first 1 through 15 participants in the queue have 3 minutes to speak. The next 16 through 25 have 2 minutes. And if time remains, the next 26 plus participants in the queue have 1.5 minutes to speak. For our hearing impaired residents present, we have wireless headsets available through our AV team in the back of the council chambers. The City Council regular meeting is called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson.
Here.
Cohen.
Here.
Delgadillo.
Here.
Hinkle.
Here.
Jaworski.
Here.
Leslie. Lim.
Councilmember Leslie is supposed to be remote, so maybe he hasn't logged on yet.
Lim.
Here.
Marsh Holshan.
Here.
Schaff.
Here.
And Ward.
Here.
Thank you. A quorum is present. Councilmember Leslie is going to be joining us virtually this evening. Therefore, we'll use a roll call vote throughout the meeting. Will everyone please rise and join me for their Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In an effort to keep order for tonight's meeting, I ask council members to limit their comments to 5 minutes. If council members are given an opportunity to speak for a second time, they should limit their comments to 2 minutes. And we'll plan on a 10-minute break at approximately 8 p.m. We'll begin with council's review and approval of this evening's agenda. Council may add or remove items from the consent agenda, or council may revise the order of business for the meeting. We will start with Councilmember Schaff.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'd like to move item 7E from the consent agenda and put it on the business agenda.
Thank you. Does any other member of council have any comments or questions regarding this evening's agenda? Okay. Item 7E will be reviewed as the first item under council business. Does any member of the council have any comments or questions regarding that? Any objections to this agenda being approved? Seeing none, this agenda is approved. This evening, we do not have any items under petitions and communications. We'll move to public comment next. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on matters other than the items already listed elsewhere on this evening's agenda. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, please come up to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello, you guys have a major problem here in Broomfield that you need to fix immediately. Outside of the police station, you have a sign. That sign states that there is no recording, no filming inside of the police station. That is a major First Amendment violation. There are many court cases that have went over this. You guys cite 2 CRSs on that sign. The first one is 18-9-111. And in section 8 of that CRS, it literally says, not intended to infringe on the First Amendment. So that sign needs to come down. The second CRS is 18-9-117. And that CRS mainly goes over, it's basically a homeless law. You don't want homeless people camping and living in your public parking lots and things like that. You guys can read those CRSs. The lawyer over there can read the CRSs. That sign needs to be taken down. The 10th Circuit of Appeals is in Colorado and also went over this. They said, and I quote, "The right to film the police falls squarely within the First Amendment's core purposes to protect free and robust discussion of public affairs, hold government officials accountable, and check abuse of power. That is a police station. There are police doing their duties inside of that police station. Take that sign down. That is a major breach of the Constitution of the United States of America, which this country was founded on. What are you guys, North Korea over here? You don't allow me to film in a police station? Seriously, that's like telling me that my camera over there can't record the city council meeting. Are you gonna not allow me to film the city council meeting? Are you gonna have this police officer arrest me? You also have a sign outside the city council doors over here that says that I can't use profanity. Cohen versus California, Supreme Court case. Fuck, 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 shit, 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 cunt, bitch, whore. I'll say whatever the fuck I want. It's also my First Amendment right, free speech. I'm a First Amendment activist, journalist, and I don't fuck around. I will be here at every goddamn meeting until that sign comes down. Do you have a problem with that? Do you have a problem with me recording inside the police station still? Huh? Do you?
Public comment isn't a dialogue. You get to speak your mind for 3 minutes.
Yeah, I know, and now you're interrupting me.
You waited for an answer. We
I
don't-
wasn't waiting for an answer.
Okay.
I'm
well,
just staring at you because that sign needs to come down. And Todd over here, breathing heavily, shut the fuck up.
And your time has expired. Thank you.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I still had 6 seconds.
It was counting up again. Next.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. My name is John Ewalt from Pinnacle North Subdivision. On January 4th of this year, data about firearm-related deaths in Broomfield were reported for the years 2017 through 2021. I found this data very interesting and that it begins to shed light on the gun violence that actually occurs in Broomfield. And frankly, it raises serious questions about the effectiveness of any legislation that was passed in January. But the effectiveness of that legislation is not why I'm speaking tonight. I'm here tonight to ask for more data of the same type to be released for 2022 and ongoing through 2023 as data is available and released on a quarterly basis or whatever is appropriate. We are now long past 2022, so all relevant data for 2022 should be available for collection and release. The reason I'm asking for this now is because the data released on January 4th was requested by members of the public 3 months prior to the release. And to have the relevant data for 2022 before June of this year when ordinances come back up, we need to be asking for it now so there's time for it to be tabulated and published. In your letter to the governor and state legislators, you state the following. We need the state to take the lead in supporting and continuing efforts of state agencies, local governments, nonprofits, and research institutions to find and effectively address the root cause of gun violence. I would be very interested in knowing if Broomfield is one of those local governments you are referring to in that statement. And if so, can anyone share what actions Broomfield is taking to find and address the root causes of gun violence? To find a root cause of anything, at a bare minimum, analysis must be done of the events to understand why they occurred and how any one event could have been prevented. If we don't know what events are occurring, it is impossible to find the root cause, let alone address it. Thank you to any and all council members who are willing to ask for the firearm-related death data to be made public for 2022 and ongoing into the future. The more light we shine on the problem, the more likely we are to find a root cause, and only then can we, quote, do something to effectively reduce gun violence in Broomfield. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Feineman. I live in Skystone, which is on the island of Ward 2. I want to talk about lead emissions from small aircraft operating out of the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. The last community noise roundtable meeting had multiple speakers that wanted to talk about airborne lead pollution from small propeller airplanes exhausts. And although this is not a noise issue at all, but can be understood as an unintended consequence of increasing the amount of aircraft traffic out of that airport. And so those people were standing up and complaining to a group which didn't actually have charter to do anything about it, but there was no natural venue for them to actually take their complaints to. I'm not an expert and I can't credential whether their concerns were valid, or I can't dismiss them either. But measurements that they cited in surrounding areas of Boulder County would indicate that Broomfield probably has similar public health issues and exposures. And given the proximity of the airport, we probably run higher risks in Ward 2 and Ward 3. I assume that the full city council is already aware that Councilman Schaaf had proposed that Broomfield hold town hall like meeting here in April that would basically bring together information on the issue with multiple regional stakeholders. And I'm here to say that I'm very proud of Broomfield for actually taking a leadership position on this particular topic. And so well done, City Council. I see this as an example of what planners call a wicked problem. I believe that it will be difficult to align all the different stakeholders, the regulatory jurisdictions, municipalities, and actually come up where everyone has a different perspective on the issue. But bringing together more information and actually bringing together those different stakeholders into a single group and sharing information is probably the first step to actually planning out what interventions are actually possible and over what time period. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I go by Christopher. I want to start off by saying I'm a concerned resident of the area. I want to start off by saying I felt a very welcoming vibe coming in tonight. And I don't know if you've ever, Mayor, if you've ever considered a career in advertising or something, but you have a very welcoming voice. So let me say that. Also, it's kind of interesting. I have an interest in all three of the things that have been discussed tonight in public comment. The First Amendment, the Second Amendment, potentially, at least that's kind of what I got out of the second man's talk, and aviation, because I'm a pilot. How do you know someone who's a pilot? Believe me, they'll tell you. All right. So, but the reason why I came tonight was I am concerned about the oath that most of us swore to today. The oath that we took when we looked at the flag and said the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. Constitution, and any infringement on the First Amendment, however slight, is an infringement on everyone. It's reasonable to place limitations on where video recording and that sort of thing can be done in the police station, certainly not in restricted areas or in interview rooms. Obviously, the police audio tape interviews, but the press shouldn't be allowed in interview rooms to do those kinds of things. But in the publicly accessible areas of public buildings, there should be little to no, in my opinion, and I believe that most people would agree, that there should be little to no restriction on the First Amendment. And when those restrictions are put in place and not put in check by elected officials, it allows our law enforcement agencies to overstep their bounds, to replace restrictions and then enforce those restrictions. And make no mistake, when police enforce restrictions, they are enforcing them with deadly force. Because at the end of the day, if you resist a police officer, they're going to pull out their gun and shoot you if you resist enough. So anytime a police officer gives you an order, it's an order under threat of deadly force. And so it's just unreasonable, in my opinion, to place these restrictions. And those two CRSs that are stated, 18.9.111 and 18.9.117, have nothing to do with first of all, with the First Amendment, because you can't make a constitutional right illegal. And with the access or the execution of the First Amendment or exercising the First Amendment in those ways, they just don't apply. I mean, if you want to stretch anything, you can make anything apply. So I would strongly urge you to take a look at that. And even if it is not strictly forbidden, follow the intent of the law. Don't restrict people's rights because it is convenient or easy. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard? Oh, there is somebody on the line. So general comment. We will go to our listener on the phone, Brad Walker. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Good evening. I don't have any prepared remarks, so I'm going to do this contemporaneously and hopefully they come off as cogent. My name is Brad Walker. I live in the town of Superior. I'm a pilot who flies out of Rocky Mountain Metro. And as obviously the council is aware, for some reason, the airport is a very contentious item for many of your constituents. I wanted to give you some feedback first about Devon Schaff. You know, I've attended every meeting that the Community Noise Roundtable has had, and I found Mr. Schaff to be fair, even keel, and trying to solve the problem, which is noise mitigation. We all want to do some efforts towards that, and the previous chair of the Noise Roundtable did a very poor job, and I want to give you some feedback, some positive feedback that Mr. Shaft has, with a deft hand, has guided through some minefields, and hopefully we're going to get back to dealing with just strictly noise. So you, as council members, you should know that he's doing a very good job, and it's respected and appreciated. There's a big push about leaded aviation gas. I would hope that the city council will keep the focus from the Community Noise Roundtable from shifting from noise to noise and lead. We've spent 2 years not dealing with noise, and it seems like under Mr. Schaft's tutelage, we're going to get to finally dealing with some noise issues. If the Noise Roundtable shifts focus and starts dealing with leaded fuel, that's going to distract from changing the flight plans, the flight paths of the airplanes, and it's just going to not accomplish anything. It's going to be a distraction more than anything. That's not to say that leaded fuel shouldn't be looked at, but I think the Community Noise Roundtable would be a poor venue to do that, and would not, at the end of the day, accomplish what you want, which is noise mitigation. So hopefully you can take that and have a conversation, and we can get back to focusing on noise mitigation as well, as opposed to dealing with noise mitigation and leaded aviation fuel. So like to stick to one issue and focus on that and accomplish some tangible items there for your constituents.
Mr. Walker,
So
your time
thank you
is
for taking my
expired.
time.
All right, good. Well, thanks for wrapping up,
No
and
problem.
thanks for calling in.
Okay,
We appreciate it.
have a good night.
You too.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so that's it for public comment. Council's community and event updates are next. Does any member of council have an update this evening? Councilmember Schaaf.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll just continue on with the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Community Noise Roundtable. Thank you for our speakers. Mr. Feineman kind of stole my thunder, maybe. In this last meeting, we were talking about we had a lot of public comment for the last 2 meetings concerning leaded gas and the possibility of engaging with this conversation with the Community Noise Roundtable. However, the Community Noise Roundtable is just that. That is our within our IGA that all of council signed on to, and that is our focus for the Community Noise Roundtable. One of the ideas that we had was a while ago was to set up opportunities for community meetings to happen on a quarterly basis within different jurisdictions. Broomfield, I'm the chair of the Community Noise Roundtable. I offered Broomfield to be the first community meeting. And this last meeting, kind of came to a possibility that maybe we could focus that community meeting on leaded gas. So the Community Noise Roundtable hosts with many other elected officials and many other regions and airports to look at this specific topic. So that was just an idea that we put out there. I mentioned it to staff. I hadn't even mentioned it to council. It's that fresh. So staff is giving me their feedback on this. We'll continue to talk with the airport to see kind of how this conversation could come about. It could be that it could be in April. It may need to be pushed off to a longer date. But this is a topic that many community members within Broomfield are talking about. Many more are talking about it outside of our borders. And then all of a sudden, many airports and even congressional reps are reaching out and saying, we would like to be a part of this conversation as well. So it's a conversation that needs to happen, obviously. And we want to make sure that we do it right, especially if we do it here in Broomfield. But at this time, we will continue forward with the IGA as stated, that noise will be our focus. And I just wanted to make sure my fellow council members and mayor know that that is the charge that they've given me. That's the IGA that they have sent to the Community Noise Roundtable, and I'll continue to ensure that we're focused on that as the chair. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other council member updates? Being none, we'll move on. Council's consideration of the consent agenda is next. Earlier this evening, Councilmember Schaaf requested that item 7E be removed to council business. Therefore, it will not be reviewed at this time. The clerk will read consent agenda items 7A through 7D and 7F by title, and there'll be one opportunity for public comments and council questions and comments. Following the clerk's reading of consent agenda items 7A through 7D and 7F, we will ask for public comments. Will the clerk please read agenda items 7A through 7D and 7F by title?
7A, approval of minutes from the regular meeting of February 28th, 2023. 7B, resolution number 2023-36, authorizing an agreement by and between the city and county of Broomfield and Brightview Landscape Services, Inc. for landscaping maintenance services. 7C, resolution number 2023-28, authorizing and approving a memorandum of understanding with the Adams County Clerk and Recorder for emergency election relocation procedures. 7D, ordinance number 2208, adding chapter 5-43 of the Broomfield Municipal Code regulating secure transportation services, first reading. Resolution number 2023-27, authorizing and approving an intergovernmental agreement by and between Broomfield and Adams, Arapahoe, Boulder, Douglas, Elbert, and Jefferson counties for ambulance and secure transportation licensing and inspection services. 7F, resolution number 2023-32, authorizing and approving the guaranteed maximum price amendment to the construction manager / general contractor agreement by and between the city and county of Broomfield and Moltz Construction, Inc. for the Lackawanna Lift Station Rehabilitation Project.
Thank you. We'll now proceed with public comments, starting with in person. If anyone who would like to be heard on these items, please come to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Not seeing any. Next is public comment on the phone. There is no one on the phone. Does any member of council have comments on these agenda items? Councilmember Lim.
I have a staff question on 7B. That's the resolution authorizing an agreement for the landscape maintenance services. So that was wonderful to see that the newly contracted landscape service, Brightview, has expanded their fleet to use renewable energy vehicles in some way, electric or hybrid vehicles. The factoring in the scoring for those contractors did not list any particular area where the renewable energy fleet was weighed as a factor. So it seemed in my reading of the item that it was a nice side effect of choosing Brightview for other reasons. So I wondered if there was any thought in the future to incorporating in the scoring the actual usage of electric and hybrid vehicles in the fleet of the contracted service.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council, Clay Shuck, Director of Operations. I think that's a great idea. We can definitely go back to our procurement team and ask them if that's something that we can look at in the future. Our procurement team through Budget and Finance actually helps set those parameters. So we would definitely provide that information back to them.
And Councilmember Lim, if I may, Mayor, may I? One of the pieces with regarding structure on those RFP and procurement, generally, the lowest offer is weighted heavier, right? So that is so we would have to, Director Shuck, evaluate not only the weighted factors that we have now, but recalibrate or review how that weighted would change based on increased costs for the electrification of those vehicles. So it's a bigger conversation than just kind of putting that in with the weight factor, particularly because, again, looking at the cost, that wouldn't be the driving factor anymore if we went in that direction. So it'll take a little more time for us to come back and get all of the right folks at the table.
The reason it seemed like there were some other factors in here which were qualitative and not quantitative. So that's why I thought, well, it's just a different qualitative factor then. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, before asking for a motion, I want to remind everyone that item 7D contains an intergovernmental agreement and requires 2/3 approval of council. Is there a motion by council that the recommendations contained in the staff reports for agenda items 7A through 7D and 7F be approved? Councilmember Marshall Holshan.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Schaaf.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Delgadillo,
Yes.
Henkel,
Yes.
Jazersky, Leslie,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Marshallshan,
Yes.
Schaaf,
Yes.
and Ward.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. There is no business before the Board of Social Services or the Board of Health this evening. Earlier this evening, it was requested that item 7E be moved to council business. As mentioned, we will review this item now before continuing with items 11A through 11C. Item 7E is council's consideration of resolution number 2023-15, authorizing and approving the amended and restated memorandum of understanding for Grandview at Interlochen, the Century Grandview this is long, for Grandview at Interlochen, the Century Grandview concerning affordable housing, but I think I know what it means. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Councilmember Schaaf, if it pleases council, if you could kind of walk through what those questions are, we would appreciate that. And Deputy Director of Economic Vitality, Rachel King, is here to address those additional questions.
Mayor, is that okay?
Absolutely, Councilmember Schaaf.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So it appears that when we're looking at this revised MOU, that this was an agreement that was done back in 2019. And so a lot of time has passed since then. And the rationale for how we came up with that was prior to our affordable housing or our inclusionary housing ordinance. And so because of that, we had a different formula or a different way of calculating that. So that would be my first question is how did the developer and staff come to the conclusion back in 2019 to come up with the formula that they did and kind of explaining that. And so then on top of that, how we came to the how do we came to the numbers that are there in front of us today with the revised MOU. And then because of both of those agreements, they were both a flat rate as opposed to calculated on the AMI, and why we wouldn't go towards the AMI and looking at kind of a more an agreement that's more in line with our inclusionary housing ordinance. Those would be kind of my three areas.
Appreciate those questions. And rather than taking them one by one, it's more of a comprehensive answer. Starting with the agreement and conversation started in 2018. And in 2019, it was a previous leadership team that made the agreement that it wasn't going to be based on AMI, that it was going to be a flat 300,000. To your point, and we all know that some of the agreements that we would make now, not only with the change of cost, not only with the change in inclusionary housing ordinance, but change in approach with regards to development, it would have looked different. That said, the agreement is in place, and the developer, as they moved forward subsequent to 2019, took into account that the agreement that was solidified then is going to be the same one that we continue with, and that we don't change the field goal at the end, if you will, because again, there's a stark difference between what we agreed to and why mid 2018 and now, not just from a cost perspective. I'm going to ask Deputy Director King to go into, if you're looking at 300,000, having that be the flat, and the percentage of increase. So if somebody can get into a $300,000 unit, we know right now they're going to be underwater if we go to the 80% of AMI. So Deputy Director King is going to walk us through why it makes sense on both sides if we were going to shift, and what that impact would be, not only for the developer, but for the homeowner that then comes into what their ability to increase wouldn't be based on market. So in other words, they wouldn't be able to get more than 3.5% of that base. So if we change the base, then the percentage of possible income to them if they sell the affordable housing will also adjust. If we keep it at that 300,000 per that level, right? So again, the benefit and the detriment is going to be equally weighed. I know that's completely unclear because I didn't even understand what I was saying. So Deputy Director King is going to walk us through it, but start with the base and not necessarily going back and redoing the agreement. But if you talk about the base of 300, where it would be now, what that 3.5% increase would be, and the implications of having it be 80% then and 80% now.
Thank you, Manager Hoffman. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, Rachel King, Deputy Director, Economic Vitality and Development. So as Manager Hoffman was indicating, each of these restricted units or for sale restricted units carry with it, when the buyer purchases the unit, a subordinate lien and covenant. So in that lien and covenant, the terms of the resale are laid out. There's an equation that has to be followed for subsequent buyers of the unit. And what Manager Hoffman's referring to is the cap on the equity that homeowner can gain from that restricted unit during the time that the unit is restricted. So all of that essentially means that if we were restricting the unit in today's market at that $300,000 level, when that buyer goes to sell, let's call it 5 or 10 years from now, the comparable market values of other units on the market would be such that they're essentially stuck in that unit for their lifetime. They really don't gain anything from selling the unit and moving elsewhere. So that's really that unintended inequity that can be caused if we are pricing these units too low. That being said, the original pricing was calculated at a price in 2019 terms that would have been affordable to a household earning 80% of the area median income. with COVID and other market factors that have occurred since 2019. Obviously, we can all understand that market prices have risen. So what we are simply trying to do with the amendment for this MOU is to rectify what I would call essentially an oversight in how it was drafted, in that we were trying to reflect the 80% AMI level rather than really that price of 300,000. That particular price was more of the arbitrary figure just associated with the 80% level. So with the update for the amendment that you have in front of you for consideration, it merely just updates that price to today's standard for the 80% level. And Councilmember Schaaf, to your question, there is no change in calculation essentially between those prices and today's. And Manager Hoffman, did I catch everything you were hoping me to catch?
You did for me.
Okay.
I'm looking at council.
It's hard to believe that was just 3 years ago.
That's right.
Yes, Councilmember Schaaf.
Thanks, Mayor. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. So you're saying that if the unit was priced too low because there is a cap on the sale price, that there wouldn't be as much equity, being able to come out. If the unit was priced at a higher rate, I guess at that point, the seller would be able to realize more equity out of that unit. How is that possible?
So the unit, or the base price for the unit at the beginning of the restricted period is what is the figure that is utilized for the calculation moving forward for those subsequent resales during the restriction period. So if that figure is too low, then essentially when they go to sell, the equity won't catch up. And it is a fine line with these restricted units, right? They're being offered as a restricted value so that home buyers at lower AMIs can afford them. But there is a little bit of a trade-off in that their equity is capped, right? For that restricted period. So we're saying when the unit base price is so low, there's no way that the equity growth for that particular unit can catch up with the market for those subsequent resales. Hopefully that made more sense.
It does a little bit.
Okay.
Do you have this calculated out in terms of what that equity would be based upon that 300,000 and based upon the 405,000?
For those particular figures, looking back to Mr. Romine, do we have those particular numbers? No, not right now, but we can provide those
It sounds like in theory that
estimates.
this is what's going to work out, but I'm curious. I mean, I'm not entirely sure how to calculate this out myself, so I'd be interested in seeing what that looks like. And I'm curious too. So if we change this to $405,000 today, and the units aren't built for another year, I don't know when the units are actually going to be put up for sale. Might there be a possibility that, again, the units are priced too low and that we'll have to be back here again, raising the price of these affordable units?
We've received information from our partners at Century Communities that they expect these units to become available this summer. So we are not expecting the prices to be updated because we won't have the updated AMIs that early.
And so to change this to an AMI, because it seems like that 300,000 and the 405,000 were based off of 80% AMI. Why wouldn't we just update it to the 80% AMI and just not have to deal with exact numbers?
Great question. So again, I think the original agreement just essentially hit the intent, but in a different way, right? So it stated that flat rate instead of the 80% level. When we're doing the amendment to the MOU, because that was the structure of the original MOU, we aim to keep the same structure, just update the pricing, and all of our other negotiated MOUs with our additional developer partners, we have updated the terminology to reflect the AMI, the 80% AMI, rather than that fixed price and time.
Okay. Mayor, that's all the questions I have for now.
Okay. Councilmember Ward?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my first question is, in the MOU that is attached to our packet, Century Homes says that 80% AMI for a family of four is 93,760 for the 2022 numbers for Broomfield County. Yet when I go on DOLA's website and I pull up 80% for a family of four, it's $89,950. Why is there such a discrepancy?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Ward. So there are a couple of different varying authorities that set AMI tables. For our purposes in our program, we reference out the CHAFA rent and income table as our guiding source. So the $93,760 figure that is referenced comes from that particular CHAFA table. There are some other varying tables for different HUD programs and other grant programs that have different calculations for varying reasons. But for our purposes here in inclusionary housing, we're referencing that particular CHAFA table.
Okay, thank you. When we talk about how much someone's going to end up paying for an affordable unit, and I know generally you don't want to spend more than roughly 30% of your income on that housing. Does that factor in, property taxes, utilities, homeowners insurance, mortgage insurance, et cetera?
In our calculations, internal, when we're speaking with our developer partners and setting these maximum sale prices, we take into account mortgage, interest, and taxes, but we do not factor in HOA. That is a little too varying in scale, project to project, and nor utilities.
Okay, that's totally fine. I guess my next question is, when we factor in this affordable or affordability, are we assuming a 20% down payment for these, or are we looking at they're doing a FHA loan, which has what, traditionally 5% or so?
That's right.
So I guess I have a hard time with that because, a traditional 20% down payment for a $405,000 unit would be $81,000.
I'm sorry to interject, Councilmember Ward, to clarify, we are not using a 20% down payment.
No,
We
I
are
know.
using 5%.
Yes,
FHA.
I know.
Okay.
But 5%, where does that, usually with that difference, that means you have to have mortgage insurance as well. Is that correct?
Yes,
Did we factor mortgage insurance into these payments?
yes, I believe we are. Where's Mr. Romling? No. Oh, excuse me. No.
Okay. So I guess the hard part I have with affordable is when I do these calculations, and hoping my calculations are correct. 405,000, your monthly payment would be $3,441. That's assuming your taxes and fees that you pay per year with a 30-year fixed rate at the regular interest rate of average right now is 7.35. I don't understand how that's affordable at $93,000 a year.
Thank you for that question and the opportunity to clarify. So I don't have immediately in front of me our calculation table, but I can assure you, especially with Mr. Roman at the helm, that there's a very meticulous calculation that goes into zeroing in on that 30% affordability level for each household. So the sales prices are calculated using an average of the household number based on number of bedrooms for the product. And then using that number of persons per household, we're calculating that income that's expected, and then all of those various expenses and in getting right at that 30% affordability level. So we'd be happy to share that calculation so you can see where the numbers are coming together. But that is the level that we're striving for to make sure that folks are not cost burdened with these houses.
And Councilmember Ward, if I may, so the title of affordable housing, I don't think there's anyone in this room or in the community that would say that there is affordable, right? So again, it's attainable housing and income aligned housing. And the difference is City and County of Broomfield won't ever be in the position to subsidize to the degree that is required when your average cost of a home in Broomfield is $600,000. We just won't. So regardless of the calculations, regardless of the ongoing amount of subsidies, especially on the front end. So even if we had loan forgiveness, that gap is tremendously significant. And so it's either going to be CCOB subsidizing, or it's going to be the developers and the state subsidizing with the tax credits and the whole host of wraparound programs. But again, the end result is someone is going to have to make up that gap.
No, I totally understand that. And I don't want to imply that Broomfield should be the one doing that. I guess I would like to see those calculations just because I'm having a very hard time wrapping my head around how 80% AMI for a family of four is 93,000. And when I do these calculations, I'm getting a very different number. So I would like to see those calculations just whenever. I'm not saying right now. I think that's all my questions right now, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. My questions are kind of along the same lines, but I want to start off. Are these units already built?
No, they are not. Is that, I have actually our developer partner in the room, Ms. Cindy Myers, but they have not been built.
Have they been started, I guess, is that in construction?
Yes.
Okay, and so what's the impact on the developer if we don't approve this?
Manager Hoffman, would you like me to?
Well, I'd have to take a 30-second timeout and talk with our city county attorney, given that it is an agreement that has been in place. They're under construction and opening is set for this summer. So I'm happy to go offline for a moment and ask Nancy, Councilmember Marsh Holston, while you ask that other question.
Okay. And then why were they delayed? I wasn't on council in 2019, but why are they been delayed until now?
The primary reason, and I don't want to completely speak for our developer partner, but COVID. So this agreement was negotiated in 2019.
Okay. And the current agreement, these units are limited to those making 8% AMI or lower, correct?
Correct.
The current agreement. And the amended agreement is also 80% or lower.
Correct.
Right, okay. So the same population is gonna be applying for these houses regardless what we do, okay?
That's right.
So I was also doing my own calculations while we're sitting here, and to Councilmember Staff's point, and to what your answer earlier, using a basic calculator of 3.5% increase, a $300,000 home in 10 years appreciates to 423, so 123,000 increase. 405 appreciates to 571, so 166,000. So that's a difference in $43,000 in equity. I understand that. But doing a quick FHA calculator, a $300,000, the mortgage on $300,000 purchase is $700 a month less than the purchase of a $405,000 house. That's $84,000 over 10 years in savings. So I guess my question is, if we're selling these units to the same 80% or lower AMI, isn't it better for them to have more money in their pocket every month rather than some ambiguous at the end of the mortgage? I guess that's my question.
So that's a subjective question, right? Because yeah. So we a couple of things. If you do not approve this agreement tonight, then the deal that's in place right now stays status quo. It puts the developer in a very difficult position. And the reason we were bringing it forward was primarily because of the equity issue, that the individuals in 10 years or 5 years or 3 years could have the access to the same opportunity to have equity. So again, we would be making a decision on behalf of the buyers to essentially not have equity above the $300,000 base.
And then my final question is it appropriate to assume that if this wasn't approved, then there would be additional costs associated with the purchase of the remaining units? Is that likely that those prices would go up?
So again, it's subjective, and I'm looking at the developer right now. Similar to the answer that or to the comment that I gave to Councilmember Ward's question, that somewhere along the way, someone picks up the cost. And so if it's not the state, then it's the local government. If it's not the local government, then it's the renter or the home buyer. But at some point, someone's going to make up that gap.
Thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Lim.
I guess the other thought I had was, doesn't in the balance between promoting equity versus the cost per month and the down payment at the beginning, isn't there an assumption in favoring the equity that the resident is going to stay in that townhome for a certain period of time also? So that's where I'm not sure that I would have balanced it in that case, and under those considerations, either in favor of equity versus lower down payment and lower monthly cost.
So again, this is
Was that at all a consideration in your decision? Do you have any statistics? I mean, that would be the kind of thing that if we had worked this out with numbers ahead of time, that I would have thought, well, somebody stays in their townhome 6 years, and to catch up on, and to really have the equity make up for the difference in the down payment and the monthly payment may take 10 years. So no, and then we don't do that kind of thing.
I think to your question in terms of what was considered, it was really more of a clerical issue, to be completely honest with you, that we wanted to rectify the agreement to update the sales price to reflect the 80% AMI level. We think that, because this MOU was one of the initial MOUs negotiated, there were some lessons learned that came from it. And the drafting of that original MOU focused on the flat rate that was representative of the 80% AMI, rather than just leaving the price out of it and referencing the 80% AMI. So as far as considerations for the update, I think it was really just hoping to correct the record, and in keeping with a response I provided earlier, because this was the way it was laid out in the original MOU. We kept the same drafting style in keeping with that methodology, and that we quoted a price. So I guess honestly, that wasn't part of the discussion. Manager Hoffman, do you have anything to add to that?
no, other than this is a sticky one, right? I mean, so staff can do their best to be able to say, to make that judgment call on behalf of the home buyer. and behalf of the developer. And so the attempt that's on the table is to provide consistency on how the other developments are right now, or at council's purview, not.
All right, Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. As Councilmember Hoffman said, this is a really interesting problem. If I understand correctly, this was approved before the affordable housing ordinance was approved. Developer came back and agreed to include affordable, attainable, whatever you call it, in this agreement 3 years ago. Fast forward 3 years. They're coming to you to say, we will still do affordable, but we can't, it has to be raised to this new price point. The issue, it seems twofold. One, this price point is market rate. I mean, if you look at the size of homes in the market if you go on Zillow or any of the markets, you'll see this size of apartment or townhome or house for about $405,000 to $450,000. So I'm having trouble understanding how these are still affordable technically. I mean, what is the objective? It does not seem on its face like we're providing more attainable housing with these 16 units because they seem to be at market rate.
Thank you for the comment, Councilmember Cohen. I guess in response to Councilmember Ward's question earlier, there is a careful calculation that's done to price these that is affordable to a household at 80% AMI. And as we briefly discussed before, there's a number of factors that goes into that equation, which we'd be happy to share with council so you can see what goes into it. For comparison, with one of our initial for sale projects with restricted units, the Lennar Palisade Park paired homes, I believe those were 3 bedrooms, and Mr. Roman can correct me if I'm way off, but I think the figure we ended up with was roughly 465,000 or so for those, or 470. That sounds right, for those units. So I'd say that's in line with these units. These are 2-bedroom units. So.
And the restricted deed, if I remember correctly, with our ordinance is 10 years. Am I wrong? Is that?
For sale units are 30 years.
Okay. So 30 years. So realistically, no one is going to gain equity if they enter these affordable housing units.
They should be able to gain some equity if
they
the
pay off
market-
the whole mortgage.
If the market moves forward at over a 30-year period, right, as we expect it to do. And you're correct in that the equity will be capped based on the terms of the subordinate lien and covenant in the equation that's laid out in that document. But we do expect them to gain some equity.
And I'm just curious, for the sake of playing this out, technically, we don't have to do this.
No.
Right. We have a deal. And technically, we could buy these units ourselves at the original price. We have the first right if they don't sell them, right?
Yes.
So why would we raise the price?
It gets back to that. So if they come, it gets back to the equity. So the 30 years aside, so they stay in it for 5 years. If your base, it's just like when we buy a house. If our base is 250 and we sell and there's a cap on it because we were fortunate enough to get in, right? So the cap of the 3.5%, it's going to be 3.5% of whatever the base is. So if you come in, that's the whole, so it's not the 5 year or the 10 year, the reason that it's in perpetuity for 30 years is to, if there's turnover, right? What happened in Red Leaf? We sold some of those as affordable housing and then we didn't track it 20 years ago. And then those folks that got in because they were income qualified, sold it at market and got that whole piece. In this situation, having whatever that base is set, it's essentially it caps what their equity value is based on the market. Once you take away that initial entry fee, if you will. So again, to put it real simply, it's 3.5% of 300, or it's 3.5% of 400. So their ability to walk when they sell with more equity is what's in front of council right now. So it kind of gets back to Councilmember Marshall and Councilmember Ward. Is it better to get them in and have a lower monthly payment, or on the end, when they prepare to sell, to walk so that they can then parlay that 3.5% into the next home? So the conversations aren't, they are deliberative, and it's not just it's not a matrix, right? I mean, we weigh some at the table say, I would rather walk with the bigger chunk. Or if I'm capped at that 3 and the market does what we're continuing to see, particularly in Broomfield, you're not going to be able to stay in Broomfield. So if you sell that place, you're not going to have the equity to parlay into another home in Broomfield, which may or may not be the case if you have that cap.
It sort of depends on what your objective is, whether
You bet.
how long you're going to be there. And it comes back to the issue. Are we cutting out, the idea of affordable housing to give people a foot in the door and attain housing? But if we raise the price, we raise the bar for who can actually attain this housing.
Sure.
So,
And I think one of the pieces too that the council's been really focused on, and I know that when Jeff and I are with the developers, we continue to want and are willing to entertain additional conversations about not getting everything that we want if they're for sale units. So this is yeah, it's a juggernaut for sure.
A conundrum. Any other first round comments or questions from council? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I wasn't going to really dive into this one, but I guess I will. I guess for me, I didn't have any real concerns with this. The way I was kind of envisioning this, it was really just I think a nice gesture by the council to maybe equity to the whole builder. There's no doubt that prices have increased significantly over the last 3-4 years, and I think the statistics would show that a $300,000 house in 2019 is probably worth more than $400,000 right now in Broomfield. So it's, and we're not changing. I think that was mentioned, the party that this is being marketed to is still the same. Whether or not it really is attainable or affordable, you debate that, but it's still the 80% AMI. So nothing is really changing from that respect. I think the part that's overlooked a little bit, and maybe I'm mistaken, I think there's a small carrot in here for the city. And this goes back to if the property doesn't sell, which I'm not sure that would actually happen, because I think at 300 or 400,000, it's going to sell fairly quickly. But if it didn't sell for some random reason and the city did not want to buy it, there was that provision in there that the city is, before they would just get the difference between the sales price, and that could be nothing. And now it was guaranteed $100,000, right? Give or take.
Yes, I think the figure's 109,000 and change.
Okay, so I mean, there's something in there, although I doubt it'll ever have to be exercised. The only question that I do have, and this was Councilmember Cohen's comment down there, is and if anyone knows, what is the true market value of these townhomes? I mean, everything's expensive now. So, I mean, I certainly would hope that they're being sold at a rate that's less expensive than the regularly priced units, but I don't know.
I'll invite Cindy Myers from Century Communities to answer the question on the price of the market units.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Cindy Myers. I'm with Century Communities. Do you need addresses or sometimes? Okay.
Neighborhood is usually fine. That's good.
So, we are currently showing in our, I'm sorry, just, may I grab my glasses?
No worries. And we did kind of skip ahead from public comment. We went right into council questions and comments. So after first round, I'm going to open it up for public comment.
So we are currently anticipating that these units will be sold at $514,999. Couple of things that I wanted to, there were questions that weren't quite addressed. The question was, what is the impact to the developer? And I just like so originally when we did this, our commitment to this was $90,000. That's what we figured the delta was. If this isn't approved, it now jumps to $216,000. This is a very tough site, as I think we referenced before. It's got very tough soils on it. It's had a lot of other issues. And so not only have we experienced some of the sorry. Okay, sorry. A lot of cost increase just in what construction costs are, but the site didn't get any easier to develop either. We spent a lot of money to put into making sure these homes are going to be in good condition, given the soils out there. We did a special treatment to the soils, et cetera, those kind of things. We're eating a lot of that in what we're doing. The other consideration that was asked is that if we don't do this, you know, are the other units that are out there going to be impacted on their sales price? The answer is yes. I mean, that just makes sense, right? So, and one of the things we're trying to do is to balance part of the original agreement and the housing needs that the assessment was done, is that our condominiums that are out there, which are for sale, which are also at a lower price point, also provide a different housing need that is in the Broomfield had identified as a housing need. So we're trying to make that balance and keep those lower while still meeting the intent of this agreement. We did do the calculations from our mortgage company, and what we submitted to staff when we did this did show that the 405 was able to be, a mortgage was able to be issued that included the principal and interest. So we did run through that. Was there one other question that still to be answered? No.
Okay. I think that was it. Well, thank you for that clarification. So now I'm going to backtrack a little bit. And if anyone from the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please come forward and state your name and neighborhood for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Roxy Jewell in Lackamore. I was around when this agreement was made. To me, it is worth it to the person who's buying it to have a cheaper rent when you're poor and when you want to get something really nice. what they'll be moving into will be 100 times better than what I live in my little starter home right now. For their future, it's up to them to make their future. It's not up to you. It's not up to the builder to decide on whether they're going to have more equity or not. On top of it, this is the MOU that you guys did not, agree to. Things have changed. The builder made the decision. It took 5 years to go ahead and even, get these things going. How many do they already have done that are being lived in? I mean, are we to the point where this is the last? It's not the people who are going to move into it. It's not their fault that they want more money. So if that's the only thing is they want more money, that's another thing. It's not our fault that the soil was what it was either. It's not the new owner's fault that the soil was what it was either. This was an agreement that was made. So do what you want to do.
Thank you. Anyone else? I will return back to council member questions and anybody on the first round, Councilmember Delgadillo.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm also still a little unclear as to who the burden of this change falls on, right? And I know that our county manager, I know you said that you'd have to have a sidebar with our attorney for that, but I would really like clarification on that because I think there's kind of an argument for if we're going to have to foot the bill, there's perhaps an effective altruism argument in which maybe our money is better spent footing a bill elsewhere. However, I am very receptive to the idea that a lower monthly payment is really going to be helpful for low income people the most than equity. So,
Councilmember, so the question is legally, do you have to approve this? And the answer is no. The second piece is who's going to pay for it. So it's not our burden. We're not going to be out any of the funds. Again, just from development in general, not specifically this developer or any of the developers. When there is a gap, so they were banking on 90, turns out to build it with everything else happening, turns out to be, 260, 216. Okay. So again, so that gap is generally not swallowed by the developer. Those gaps are passed on to the market rates, which again, from the conversations that we have a lot of the developers, in order to get particularly the for sale units, which Broomfield so desperately needs because we're inundated with rental properties, right? And so again, the conversation that we have with the 4 rental units, there's a lot that we're willing to do in order to get those affordable units. And so Councilmember Cohen's point about what is market rate? So market rate for these is 525.
514, that's not including any lot premiums or upgrades or anything like that. Base.
Sure. And so, and if you look at Zillow right now at this moment, I just pulled it up. There's 3 properties. All of them are at the ones that are listed are at the co-op. There's one in a senior level housing, 55 plus, that's under 400,000. And then there are some lots that are 200,000 and under in Front Range Mobile Home Park. That's it. So there is no stock in Broomfield that a homeowner can walk into for 400,000 or less. The likelihood of that occurring in Broomfield in the next 5 to 7 years is slim. So again, it's a multi-pronged decision-making tool, right? It's more than equity for the homeowner. It's increasing and diversifying the housing stock. which has been council's charge for the last 3 years. So again, something that, and this conversation with this developer started in 2017, right? And so we all know that these deals, when you make them, they're from 2 years to 6 years out. And again, a lot changes. And one thing that we've learned is not to have, not to have a static flat amount. So our predecessors didn't have the opportunity of understanding what housing prices were going to do, particularly in Broomfield, and what that stock was going to look like on top of all of the other nuances, right? So now we know better, we do better. And this is a transitional conversation about what to do with this one that had that flat rate.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. And then I had another question. I suspect the answer is probably no, but are there any subsidies that can provided to homeowners? Perhaps like a buy down rate for the interest, because I know lots of the thing that's killing affordability is that interest rate.
So we have, so this council was also instrumental in starting the Broomfield Housing Alliance, which received its seed money, if you will, from the cash in lieu payments. So when we developed the inclusionary housing ordinance and we implemented that, it was saying to the developers on the front end, either you build the units or you buy your way out. And so I can say the majority of builders, rather than building the units because it was exponentially expensive, bought their way out. And we didn't have a good sense of what that amount, that buyout amount was. We've rectified that since, but that provided seed money for then an independent housing authority, not the board and not staff, to then be developed. So they're coming up on, so they've been in existence for a year. Now they're making the decisions about purchasing property and what those other layers of subsidy and assistance is through the Broomfield Housing Authority. And again, it's like anything else, right? They have a finite pot of money. How are they going to prioritize those funds to maximize and capitalize on getting the best bang for their buck? Broomfield does not have a general fund that subsidizes any type of loan forgiveness or buy down. We really do look to the Broomfield Housing Authority as they mature and grow, that'll be one of their caveats for in their menu of options.
All right, thank you again. And then this might just be because I'm a very slow reader, but could you remind me of the size of the units, please?
At recollection, I believe these are 2-bed, 2-bath, 1,300 square feet per unit. Does that sound right?
Great, thank you. That's all the questions I had.
All right, thank you. Any other first round comments or questions before we go to round two? You're round two, yeah. Councilmember Ward, then Marshall Olson.
Thank you, Mayor. Manager Hoffman, I just want to clarify something. In regards to the 3 or 3.5% cap on term. So is that done from, because I thought I knew, and then I heard you talking, then I didn't think I knew. So let's say they buy it 405,000. And in, let's say 10 years they sell. Is that 3.5 over that 10 years, or is it 3.5 per year that compounds on the previous year? Please clarify that for me, please.
I'm going to phone a friend because I don't want to get it wrong.
I can read you the specific language if that's helpful, because I think it gets to the point of your question. So you obviously start with the contracted price. If we're going with the 405, each year multiply the original purchase price by the percentage change in the most recent CPIU or AMI, whichever is less, up to that maximum increase for any given year of 3.5%. Does that answer? So it's
So a 3.5% for that 405,000 is $14,175 a year is the increase. So if, let's say they were to sell in 10 years, what would their actual appreciation value be that they could sell at?
And I in turn will phone a friend because my brain works slower on that type of math than my friend, Mr. Real Minds. So I'm gonna have him.
So Jeff, just
begrudgingly
putting it simply,
Yeah, let me, and I will do it simply. So without the compounding, because I don't want to do that, but it's because I can roughly do that in my head, but I'm not going to do that. So if we just do it as simple, 3.5%, if that becomes the maximum, more or less as CPI or AMI, something moves up faster, we're going to cap it at the 3.5. If it's less, it's less. But let's just say it goes at 3.5% for the next 10 years. It's 35% increase. So therefore it's at $405,000. So you were really talking about $130,000 to $40,000 total is what it would be over 10 years. That's one side of the cap. The other side of the cap, and I just want to remind you of this, this is one of the key things about the for sale housing side is there's also a maximum amount that the buyer could spend. Again, it's still stuck at 80% AMI. So if the CPI or everything moves up, but the wages only go up 1%, that 80% is going to probably be the trigger that says you can't sell it for somebody at that high level. So both of those two things have to work in tandem. And the reminder is there are two programs that we always are focusing on when we talk about income aligned housing. One is the rental side, and oftentimes we're focusing on 60 or 80% AMI. And in that case, what we're trying to do is make it affordable for the people that are going to be living in it. When we do an income aligned for sale unit, what we're trying to do is do the same thing that many other people benefit from, which is the buildup of that equity and that appreciation. Part of your equity comes through appreciation, part of it comes from your payments. And so part of this is we're trying to do the same thing on the for sale side for income aligned individuals, those who are at 80% AMI, to be able to develop that pride of ownership, equally important, get the wealth growing. And so that's part of what we're doing here so don't always think of this as getting people into these units so that they can afford it, an income level. Think about the wealth buildup too. And that's what we're trying to say. So that's and I'm sorry to kind of take that digression, but in simple terms, it'd be roughly $550,000 is where they'd be selling for in 10 years, assuming somebody at 80% AMI could afford it. Okay. So I'm sorry to kind of go a little deep, but there's two sides to this teeter-totter.
No, I think what you explained was fantastic, and I appreciate you bringing in the other side of the conversation in terms of wage growth. I think that's going to be it for my questions right now. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Marsh Holson.
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions. One, I hate to bring up amendments on the fly, but is there any movement to, if we approve this increase, to increase the number of income aligned housing units from 16?
Manager Hoffman, go ahead.
no, that is definitely legislating an agreement on the fly and nothing ever good comes from that.
Okay. For the record, Devin texted me the question, so.
And right under the bus.
Yeah,
The other question is, so you're building 268 units, correct, with 16 affordable?
Yes, that is correct.
Regardless of what we do here tonight? Those 268 will be built?
Yes.
Okay. That was my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lim.
Yes, there's a provision in this statement, in this MOU that says that the market rate units may have higher levels of finishes than the affordable units. Is that your plan?
So all of the units will have the same standard finishes, and what we do in our townhomes is we have packages that buyers can choose from, and they're all pretty much the same. There is a potential for some different options that they could choose if it was a market rate, but they all have the same kind of countertops and the same kind of cabinets and the same kind of, it might be something like a fireplace or something different like that. The finishes are pretty much the same.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted, there was a comment earlier, I think it was from you, Manager Hoffman, about who these units are marketed to. And I believe that these units would be marketed to the 80% AMI, is that correct?
That's correct.
So with the value being at the $300,000 level as opposed to the $405,000 level, would these theoretically be marketed still to that 80%, or could they be marketed to a lower AMI because a lower AMI could potentially qualify these because they would spend that 30% on these units?
Yes and yes. And so if it's 300, I mean, 80% of AMI at 300,000 looks very different than 80% of AMI at 400,000. Right. So if if it stays at 300 and our average median income, which is the highest, Jeff, are we the second highest in the state, or we are the highest? We're at 97,000 for average median income. So again, it's all about the base. So 80% at 300,000, right, would really be so let's go back to, I don't know. I don't even remember when something was 300,000. It seems so long ago in all these developments.
Manager Hoffman, if I
Yes,
could help
please.
out, and before, since I didn't do it, Mayor
Yeah.
Pro Tem and City Council, just to can be consistent. So again, the 80% AMI, so it'd be anybody, to your question, anybody that's earning 80% AMI or below could be qualified to buy these units, whether the price is 300,000 or 400,000. So you're correct in that question. And the reality is, and this is what we faced. Rachel King talked briefly about our experience with Palisades and the Lennard homes up there and the paired homes. One of the difficulties is of course, the families, the households that are looking to buy also have to qualify for a mortgage. And oftentimes that becomes a difficult measure, and it's the mortgage companies to determine that, not something we do. And so sometimes that income, the stability of the income and where that income sits also qualifies them for the home. So in that sense, there's a little bit of some art to this, but to your specific question, and I'm assuming it's yours, not
It's
the other
mine.
council members emailed you one, just to kind of get back at him for you. But the 300,000 versus 400,000 would be the 80% AMI or below. So somebody at 60% who could qualify could purchase it.
Thank you. So looking at this, I mean, I think that it's, based upon the memo and based upon the memo, there's the 80% AMI, and within the memo, it talked about how somebody with 34.5%, I think it was, of their monthly income would go towards that payment, and they could cover this at that $405,000 if they were 80% AMI. However, if it was at that 300%, it would be less of their monthly income than 30%. So we get to that whole question about cash poor versus house poor. And we've seen that. We saw that in the 2008, 2009. We saw a lot of people become very house poor. They had these houses that they couldn't afford. They lost their job, and all of a sudden they have no cash, but they have this house they're sitting on, and all of a sudden they lose their house as well. And the equity goes out of their house. So I think that that's the conversation that we're having, is what's the difference between cash poor and house poor. I'm curious, and my text message to Councilmember Marsh Holston was to really get the understanding of the FHA loan and get that percentage and get that calculation that he looked up, so I didn't have to look it up. But in doing that and calculating quickly through these numbers, it looks to be about $1.68 million as profit is realized by the developer going from 300,000 to 405,000. So that's a significant number right there for the developer's profits. And so, when that is looked upon and, trying to find out how the tenant, or potential buyer wins out, how the community wins out on this, I'm conflicted. I'm conflicted with how all these variables come together and ultimately what is best. I'm not sure if I have enough information for myself. I'm just speaking for myself. No text messages, no emails. That I don't know if I have enough information tonight to approve this tonight. So I looked towards staff. If we were to table this tonight to gather the rest of the information in terms of the numbers for what those calculations would look like, what the savings would be for the potential buyers between these two numbers. Potentially, there's a executive session to direct our negotiators to potentially get a better deal than what we have in front of us. What would be those options?
Councilmember Schaaf, it's council's purview to do that. I want to suggest that, again, we're talking about 12 units, and to say that it's $1.2 million in the developer's pocket, it's not a straight line, right? We all know that from 2019 to now, constructing these, which start in the summer, the increase on everything from, well, just every damn thing, right? So we're looking at between 30 and 45% increase for all of the materials. So I don't think it's as simple as saying they're going to be pocketing $1.2 million. It's just not gonna, it's not gonna happen. Again, it's council's purview to go back and run some of these numbers. And I don't want to step too far out to say that negotiating on 12 units out of 268 would be, I'm sorry, for 16 units for sale. I'm not even going to give you my opinion. It's council's purview, and we can definitely do that.
Thank you, Manager Hoffman. So I think that, where I sit is,
Your time is.
Oh, is mine expired? Sorry about that. Thank you.
It's okay. Yeah. Oh, you don't need anything else? Okay. All right. Yes, we are. We are. You're correct. You got us back on track. So are there any other questions from City Council on second round? Thank you.
Mayor, if I could just make one
Why
statement.
not? Yeah.
And I apologize for
No,
this,
it's
but
okay.
part of the reason why we brought it today is I just wanted to kind of reference this, is these units will be becoming available this summer. And so there is some degree of, we're trying to get to a point where they can be marketed. So the only thing I would ask is that we recognize that there is a timeliness to this. And I'm not suggesting anything, Mayor, other than to say the scheduling would be something we'd want to take on in the next month or so to make sure that we get it all done so that we can then market it to these 16 potential households that would be benefiting from this. That's all I wanted to add.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Well, first is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2023-15. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2023-15 by title?
Resolution number 2023-15, authorizing and approving the amended and restated memorandum of understanding for Grandview at Interlochen, the Century Grandview concerning affordable housing. Interlochen filing number 4, replat A, Century Communities.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Councilmember Hinkle.
I move that resolution number 2023-15 be adopted.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Anderson.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Is there any Councilmember Shaft, then Hinkle.
Thank you, Mayor. So I mean, this is kind of what I was going to say earlier. What I was on council in 2019 when this agreement was made. At that point, we did not have the inclusionary housing ordinance finalized at that point. We had some recommendations from our housing authority agreement. I do believe that this was an attempt to hit that agreement as best as we could. The flat rate was one of those issues that, I remember being worried about. I was worried about that it was going to be too high and not too low. And so here we are. I'm conflicted on this. I think that there is that conversation about being house poor and being cash poor, and this unit would work there. I wish the developer would have brought some other things into consideration with this in terms of the increase to the $405,000. I'm unsure where I'm voting on this. I look forward to hearing my council colleagues' comments. Thanks.
You, Councilmember Hinkle.
Thank you. And I appreciate Councilmember Shaft's, bringing this to our attention and really having this deep dive into it. That's fine. I do want to just sort of remind council that these are decisions that were made already. This is something that I think that we, would definitely be appreciative even today at this point. And I just really caution to make precedent on, we noticed the conversation was even leaning towards other subjects when we're bringing this forward. And that makes me very nervous. I'm sure home builders are listening to this saying, what's going to happen to me if I need to change something? Are we going to change the entire thing? I just want to make sure that we move forward, not only to the benefit of what's already happened, but for, I feel like what is a gift to Broomfield, to be quite honest. And I trust our staff on doing those calculations. And Roxy, we're on target quite a bit sometimes, but not all the time. But today we are. And I think it's up to the people, like you said, it's up to them to really, to decide what's best for them. So anyway, I really feel like we do need more ownership. We need deed restricted ownership and affordability. And I realize that we're not hitting, I work with refugees, y'all. I work with people who make 30% AMI. And as much as I would love to have this go, to that population and we can change things, I really feel like it's up to us to really stay on target. And we're talking about 16 units. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Marshallson.
Thank you, Mayor. I completely understand the trade-offs in this. I do understand that the cost has gone up and dramatically over the last few years, and for whatever reason these weren't built. But I do want to put it in context that $1.68 million, even if 100% of that is pushed off to the market rate houses, that's less than $7,000 per unit in additional cost. And I feel like we're not doing service to those populations that really need housing by increasing the cost even more. I am not going to support this tonight. I do believe that the extra equity that they would gain is far outweighed by the increased, less expenses they have in their monthly budget. Over 10 years, it's $84,000 in savings, actually $88,000 in savings if you count the 4% less in down payment at a 3.5% FHA versus 100 and something thousand, 160,000 in increased equity, or sorry, 40, I did the math wrong, 44,000 in increased equity versus 88,000 in savings. So I do think it is more beneficial to the members of our community to be, have more money in the pocket than being house poor. So that I'm not going to support this tonight, but I do appreciate my colleagues' comments. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cohen.
I was just going to say, I understand the conflict that the other council members feel, because it's philosophically difficult to vote to raise the price $105,000 on the unit and then still maintain our goal of affordable housing in Broomfield. At the same time, we have to recognize that affordable housing in Broomfield is $405,000. It's the bitter truth. It's frustrating because we do have this inclusive ordinance, but affordable housing isn't getting built. The developers are buying out. The affordable housing just isn't getting built, and here's an opportunity to have it. And I understand the need to approve it. I appreciate that this is, actual owner condos, something we never get. I appreciate that they came forward after the inclusive ordinance was passed to offer up more attainable housing. It's a hard balance. I think the hardest thing to swallow is voting to raise the price $105,000 per unit and yet turn around and say we support affordable housing. And to Councilmember Hoffman's question of who pays for it. Should the developers who are doing quite well in our community pay more for affordable housing, or do we all as a community eventually, the only way we're going to have affordable housing is we subsidize it? So that I don't know if that crystallizes some of your conflict that you're feeling, but that's the difficulty I feel with this issue.
Thank you. Councilmember Lim.
Yes, I appreciate the fact that Councilmember Schaaf pulled this off the consent agenda. I would have appreciated greater numbers in the background in the memo that we could have taken into consideration that we've now talked about, where we kind of all did our mortgage calculations on the fly and our down payments. So I would have appreciated that in the memo, knowing that this, when I read it, I thought, this was never an easy decision to me. The reason I will end up supporting it is because of the difficulty that I know we've had in getting the developers to build for sale affordable housing. We've been asking for that for a while. And since we have it in this, then I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. And I will be supporting this amendment. And I just want, the basic thing I'm looking at here is that this number was calculated on the AMI back in 2019, which was significantly lower. And I also want to note, and I'm assuming this hasn't changed. I wish I'd asked this question during the question time, but under city obligations in the original agreement, there's an order. And the first one is people currently living and working in the city. And then it goes on, people currently living in the city, people currently working in the city, and then all other eligible buyers. And I believe our focus has and remains to try to get people who are, living and working in Broomfield or one or the other as the individuals in these households. And I would hate to, keep this at the lower level and then have these homes go to those outside of Broomfield. So I just think, I think it's the right thing to do to raise us up to the AMI that as the 2023 AMI and put this where they would have been had these homes been built now. So I will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I'm going to support this tonight. Great discussions, house poor versus rent poor, or whatever those discussions were. But, I think that's kind of really irrelevant. To me, this was just, this was a courtesy adjustment for the developer. There's been a significant change in the market over the last 3 to 4 years. We're still going after the same 80% AMI, families. It's just things change. Things are a lot more expensive. I think we all understand that and appreciate that. So we certainly can say, we could stick it to the developer tonight and say no to this, and that's great. But I think this is just, it's a courtesy. Things have changed. And I think if any of us have entered into agreements where things have significantly changed, we'd also would ask for some sort of a courtesy on an adjustment as well. So I would also ask everyone to remember, and this was mentioned, but I think it's important too, that this was entered into before we had any affordable housing ordinances. So it's my understanding they didn't even have to enter into this MOU. This was voluntary and a gesture on their part at that time. So it may or may not have been approved if they didn't do this, but they certainly didn't have to go ahead and enter into this MOU at that point. So I think that's a good reason to extend this courtesy. And as was mentioned, this is still a good deal for Broomfield one way or the other. It's 400,000. You can't find anything else in Broomfield for 400,000 or even 500,000, as Manager Hoffman mentioned. So you're going to get 250 plus units at 500,000, which is a big influence and influx of, I want to say affordable, but somewhat attainable housing in our, given what we have in our area. So this is still, looking at it just at today, right now, if we looked at when this deal was proposed to us, I think we'd be very happy to see it, and it would likely pass unanimously. So the fact that things have changed since we passed this last shouldn't be held against the developer here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said, Mayor Pro Tem Jaworski. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. I will not be supporting this tonight. I, one, do not feel bound by previous decisions. In fact, we already made a decision on this. They want a different decision. And philosophically, when I look at this, this is not even something I can afford. And I make 90,000 a year, supposedly. Yes, it's 16 units, but 16 matters. Every unit matters. And when I calculated the difference of the 16 to the $214,990 that's listed in the MOU, that's an additional $3.44 million that will have to be allocated somewhere else. And if you divide that up between the other 144 townhomes that do not include the condos, that's an additional $23,887 per unit, which if you look across the way in Via Vara, there are homes that start at close to $600,000, and that still puts them less than those units at market rate. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So I appreciate my council colleagues' comments. One comment that I heard that kind of stuck to me was stick it to the developer. And I do not think that that's my mentality. I believe that we have to have a working relationship between the developer and the community. Fortunately or unfortunately, this is our chance to talk. And it's in a public forum with a lot of people watching where, everything's out on the table. And that's how I've always operated in my 5 years on council, is ensuring that every decision I make, that all of the information's on the table so that I can make the best decision possible. I think that, looking back on this decision in 2019, I appreciated that the developer came to council and presented this option, because I don't think that, one, we had the stick to make it happen. But I do believe that it was in a good faith attempt by the developer to include one of our goals within their development. I do hope that as we continue to move forward, that the conversation continues in terms of what it looks like to continue to develop in Broomfield, what these units look like as they're sold. I appreciate my council colleagues' comments, and I will be supporting this tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Marshallson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one final follow-up. I just want to point out to my colleagues that these units are being built, whether we agree to this tonight or not. We're not, if we don't agree to this, we're not losing out on these units. They are being built. That being said, I fully understand that the extra cost would be likely added to the other market rate units. And as my calculation, I figured out, 252 units. If I include the other ones, it's less than $7,000 each. So I do think that's an appropriate use of, I do not think that it's appropriate to approve this tonight. So again, that's why I'm voting against it. So thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Is that all for discussion? We'll return. Seeing no further discussion, we'll move forward to the vote on resolution number 2023-15. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Cohen,
Yes.
Delgadillo. No. Henkel.
Yes.
Jaworski. Leslie.
Yes.
Lim.
Yes.
Marshallson.
No.
Schaaf.
Yes.
Ward.
No.
Anderson.
Yes.
That passes 7-3. Thank you very much. Thanks for letting us, have this stream of consciousness discussion about it. And we appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very much. Almost time for our break. But we could probably get through this one. So our first item under council business this evening is the public hearing and council's consideration on second and final reading of proposed ordinance number 2205 relating to building code. I'll now declare the public hearing open. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. And Anna Bertanzetti, Co-Director of Planning and Development, is going to introduce this item and walk us through it briefly, given it is the second reading. Ms. Bertanzetti.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. As was mentioned, Anna Bertanzetti, Co-Director for Community Development, and I'm also joined this evening by Tim Pate, Chief Building Official for Brimfield. If we could have the next slide, please. Brimfield's charter authorizes Brimfield to adopt standard codes such as the International Code Council Series for Buildings. Moving from the 2018 versions to the 2021 International Code Package will allow Brimfield to keep pace with changes in construction materials and techniques, as well as to ensure that we are changing with the overall life and fire safety requirements as they become available in these more modern codes. A list of the significant changes to the various codes was included with the first reading memorandum. It was included as attachment 1. There are numerous local amendments that were previously adopted within the municipal code that are being removed through this ordinance because these various local amendments are no longer necessary because they're now included as standard within the 2021 codes. To ensure communication regarding this intended code change, Brimfield staff did host a public meeting for home builders, homeowners, architects, contractors, et cetera, in August of 2022. There we reviewed the significant changes that were noted between the 2018 and 2021 code packages. But 14 people representing home builders and designers attended that meeting, and it was generally positive feedback. Next slide, please. With this proposed update, numerous codes will be updated as shown on the screen. The effective date for the ordinance would be April 15th. Although there is not a comprehensive study for the financial impact of the overall 2021 code package, there are studies specific to the changes of financial implications for the International Energy Conservation Code, or the Energy Code, and staff provided links to these studies within the staff memorandum for the first reading. The conclusion of one of those reference studies concluded that the weighted national average cost to change from the 2018 to 2021 Energy Code was $2,695 to $3,695 per unit. And according to these studies, the additional costs are balanced due to the savings in ongoing energy conservation, so reduced heating and cooling costs. Next slide, please. Brimfield currently has a local amendment that allows new single-family homes and townhomes to be constructed without a requirement for residential sprinkler systems. When preparing for the code amendment back in the summer of last year, 2022, staff met with North Metro to review the potential updates. And the thought at the time was that the existing amendments within the municipal code should remain essentially the same with this 2021 version, with a focus on a transition and a future code amendment. This was the communication that we provided during the public hearing in August, or public meeting in August of 2021 with the home builders and other interested parties. Questions were raised during the first reading of this ordinance regarding potentially removing those local amendments, which would then require single family paired homes and townhomes to have fire sprinkler systems. The memorandum for the second reading that was provided this evening started to address some of those questions that were raised at the first reading, such as the potential reduced costs for insurance and the total cost of the systems. Staff will be preparing a future study session. We've tentatively scheduled it for the summer to discuss in more detail the opportunity to consider removing that local amendment regarding the fire sprinklers for single family townhomes and paired homes. At that time, we anticipate having a lot more detail regarding the financial impacts. Additional outreach to residents, property owners, home builders, developers would be included as part of that effort in regards to the focused potential removing of that local amendment for fire sprinkler systems. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we started communicating this formally last summer with that community meeting in August. But informal communications have occurred throughout 2022 and continuing into this year to make sure that home builders and developers and contractors are aware of this potential code change. Applicants with projects currently in process have been completely made aware of this. It's also been notified on our website. As is typically done during this transition, Broomfield encourages applicants to that are submitting building plans with an anticipated issuance after April 15th to utilize the updated 2021 code package. Staff will also be bringing back additional items for discussion, including a roadmap forward for considering strengthening amendments to the energy code, as well as I mentioned, the discussion regarding residential fire sprinkler systems. And this concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Burton-Zetti. We'll now proceed with public comments, starting with in-person. If anyone would like to be heard on this item, please come up to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. I don't see any online. Questions from City Council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce amendments for or against this item is later. Are there any questions from council? All right, there being no further questions, the public hearing is closed. Next is council's consideration of proposed ordinance number 2205 on second and final reading. Will the clerk please read proposed ordinance number 2205 by title?
11A, ordinance number 2205, amending certain sections within the Broomfield Municipal Code and adopting the 2021 International Building Code and related codes as primary codes by reference with an effective date of April 15th, 2023, second and final reading.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Councilmember Henkel?
I move that ordinance number 2205 be adopted on second reading as directed by City Council and be published.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Ward?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Lim?
I just wanted to say I appreciate the fact that there's been some further research by staff on the fire sprinkler exemption, and that will come back this summer. And I'm looking forward to the conversation on the strengthening amendments in April. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing no further discussion, we'll move forward to the vote on ordinance number 2205. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Delgadillo.
Yes.
Henkel.
Yes.
Jazersky. Leslie.
Yes.
Lim.
Yes.
Marshallshin.
Yes.
Schaff.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Cohen.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. I think it's a good time to take our 10-minute recess. So it's 7:57. We'll be back at 8:07. Thank you. Welcome back. The next item under council business this evening is a resolution authorizing and approving the First Amendment to the City and County of Broomfield budget for the year 2023. Also, item 15A is the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority's consideration of a resolution authorizing and approving the First Amendment to the borough budgets for 2023. We'll consider both items at this time. The meeting of the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority is called to order to consider agenda item 15A concurrently. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll for the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority.
Anderson. Here. Cohen.
Here.
Delgadillo.
She's here. Yeah.
Hinkle. Here. Jezerski. Here. Leslie.
Is he? He's here. Okay.
Lim. Here. Marsh Holshin.
Here.
Mitchell. Nielsen. Schaff.
Still here.
Ward.
And here.
Thank you. A quorum is present. Council and borough members have a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, Nathan Mosley, our budget manager, is going to walk us through this item. I think the theme for this evening that council and the community can notice is we are continuing to deepen the bench between the deputies and managers and not just the department heads doing the presentation. Mr. Mosley always does a terrific job and helps inform all of our departments on the budget, and I look forward to hearing the presentation tonight. Mr. Mosley.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Manager Hoffman. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. I am Nathan Mosley, the Budget Manager here for the City and County of Broomfield. And so I'm here this evening to provide an overview of the First Amendment to the 2023 budget for your consideration. The First Amendment of the year is primarily focused on requesting roll forwards of unspent funds from capital projects, grant budgets, and small amounts of operational budgets. This amendment also includes additional appropriations that have been identified since the adoption of the budget back in October of 2022. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start the presentation by discussing the request to roll forward unspent 2022 funds. This first slide covers our grant and operational roll forwards. There's a total of $21,620,720 in revenue that we're rolling forward. The vast majority of that is ARPA dollars. We can't recognize ARPA dollars until we actually spend the funds, so we're moving those revenues forward into 2023. There's also a total of $8,039,702 in grant and operational expenditure roll forwards. Some notable examples include the Broomfield Heights pedestrian improvements. That's $1.4 million that's included in that amount. The Broomfield Heights stormwater improvements is $4.9 million. And then there's also a behavioral health program grant at $561,000 that's included in that roll forward. Next slide, please. The next slide covers our capital project request to roll. And so this is the main item. You see the vast majority of the request start in this area. So CIP is the area where most of our requests to roll unused budgets happen. Unlike the budget cycle, which runs on a calendar year, projects don't start and end in a calendar year. So many times we have to roll those funds forward so that we can finish projects. We're asking to roll forward $115,289,127 across all of our funds in unspent capital projects for 2022 into 2023. There is a link within the document that provides council with all the complete listing of the projects that make up each of the individual funds that we have here on the screen. Again, a couple notable projects that are included in that include the industrial lane bike lanes and sidewalks at $4.4 million, US 36 bike and ride shelters at $1.4 million, Broomfield Trail Aspen to Sheridan, which is $1.875 million, and then new clean water standards at $6 million. As part of the capital rollover, we also have specifically the ARPA projects. We wanted to call these out because they're not embedded within the CPI fund or CIP funds. They're actually, because we got the revenues in Fund 1 and Fund 2, which are the city and county funds, we have these rolling forward in those funds as well. So these are budgeted in Funds 1 and 2 instead of Fund 20, which is our normal capital expenditure fund. But we wanted to do that just to make sure they were segregated. We could track them easily because we are using federal ARPA dollars. The second part of this slide is regarding the borough funds. We do have $1.8 million, which is being asked to roll forward for State Highway 7 widening improvements. And then we do have the 25,000 for general borough updates. Next slide, please. So we're going to move to items that have been identified since the budget was adopted back in October. So this slide provides an overview of the additional requests. A list of all significant changes is linked within the council memo, and I've included a couple of the specific examples listed here. So the ARPA fiber project that has been identified, that's included in this amendment, an additional 3.6 million reserve transfers to strengthen our reserves. The senior property tax refund program had not been brought before council when we approved the budget back in October. So that's included in this budget amendment. And then also updates to the proportional share for city and county of Broomfield for 17th district attorney costs. Next slide, please. We also have a small amount of new grants that have been finalized since the budget adoption. So this slide gives you an overview of those. Again, there's a detailed list of each of the grants that's included in this summary in your council memo. Next slide, please. This final slide includes a summary of all the major fund categories that are included in amendment number 1. This table includes projected beginning fund balance, 2023 budget amendments, and our projected ending fund balance at the end of 2023 based on this first amendment. Again, increases to projected balances are the result of a couple different things. We are very conservative when we do our revenue projections. And so we did exceed revenue projections in many areas last year. So that helps strengthen our beginning fund balance. And then there are expenditures that go unexpended and are not rolled forward. So that also goes into our projected beginning fund balance. But we do have auditors coming in at the beginning of April. And so when we bring the second amendment to City Council for consideration at the end of June, we will have those finalized beginning fund balances based on the audit. So with that, next slide, I think is just questions. So appreciate your time and here to answer any questions you might have.
Well, thank you very much for that update, Mr. Mosley.
Thank you.
We'll now proceed with public comments on both items, starting with in person. If anyone who would like to comment on this item, please step forward. Checking the phones, there's nobody there. All right, then we'll move on. Questions from City Council and Borough members are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce amendments and state positions for and against this item is later. Are there any questions? Councilmember Lim?
Two questions on the significant changes by fund attachment. One is on the item for elections expansion. So there's additional funds allocated. How does that relate to what we were last week where we decided not to do the expansion now and do minor adjustments?
So the $1 million that was originally on the table, actually it was like 1.4, was to hire a consultant and then a firm outside of that. Part of the going internal is not the lean and mean philosophy that we've been under, but certainly looking from bringing in-house as much as we possibly can from a short-term perspective and a long-term. So again, staff will be coming back with what we see as permanent fixes, whether that is looking outside of this building and or internally being able to do what we can do in order to have a successful 2023 election. So again, it was utilizing existing CIP funds and our facilities crew doing the work rather than going outside to the consultant in order to have them not only manage the project, but the labor force to do it as well.
Okay, so there's $645,000 in expenses that are listed as the significant changes to the budget. So are you saying those expenses are going to occur even if we do the work internally, or?
I'm going to have Abby answer that question. Ms. Yellman, excuse me.
So, and I'm kind of looking at Brenda too. I think what we're doing is making sure there's funds in there in case there is some money needed. There will be money needed, obviously, even if we do the work in-house. So some of that is to ensure that money's there. My gut is that maybe this was also finalized because that was a quick decision made in the last week or so. So some of that dollars that are allocated as a significant increase most likely is going to taper down because now we've made the decision to pull that in-house. But there will be costs associated with that, whether it's in-house or not. Is that helpful, Councilmember Lynn?
Yeah, so we can be optimistic and think that some of that might come back. Okay, thanks. The other question on the significant changes in the budget is related to public health. So there's a line item where it says reclassification of epidemiologist to regional epidemiologist.
Yes.
Is that I'm just curious about that terminology and how a person who is hired by our, for the city and county of Broomfield became a regional epidemiologist. And does that mean they're employed by other county entities?
Deputy Director Deb Fredersgill is going to come and answer that question.
And I just want to say, I appreciate working with Deb and her team. They did a really great job of documenting how they wanted to change their department in order to meet the needs of their constituents and your constituents. And so this is just a reflection of all the work that they did, but I will let her give you the details on the position because I don't.
Sure. Thank you for the question. Deb Butterspill, Deputy Public Health Director. And the staffing model prior to COVID, we employed a 0.75 epidemiologist that was responsible for all of our case investigations, COVID being not on the radar yet, but then added to the mix. And through the pandemic, we staffed up our COVID team to 3 epidemiologists with the phasing out of some of the requirements and the reaching the close of the public health emergency. We have been scaling back our staffing model, including our epidemiology team. And so we are responsible. We're under contracts with our state public health department for maintaining our level of containment responsibilities for all communicable diseases, including COVID. And serving as a regional epidemiologist, we had not previously represented that in the job description. So we reclassified the part-time COVID epidemiologist that was working full-time, but supported partially with COVID dollars to a full-time regional epidemiologist that was going to be able to be supported through our local planning and support dollars and our ongoing emergency preparedness and response dollars. FEP is the program through the state contract. And so basically we wanted to make sure that not only the job description was current, but that we had a sustainable funding stream for all of those responsibilities, including COVID, that we'll be responsible for even when the funding streams are not there. So transitioning into others, and you'll see further down right under that line item in the budget, we did reduce our overall staffing plan for epidemiology in the course of making this transition. Hopefully that makes some sense.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Mayor, I wanted to remind council as well that in years past, council had to follow, track, and understand, as well as staff, average of 26 budget amendments a year. So over the last 2 years, we have been able to structure that every year you will see the same buckets. And Mr. Mosley, go through those general buckets, which makes it easier for staff to, again, when we shifted from budgeting based on expenses to budgeting based on revenue. So we don't spend what we don't have. We reallocate instead of reprioritize. And a part of that structure is that backbone so that we can have the cumulative effect on each decision that council makes. Mr. Mosley, the 4 budgets a year, the 4 budget amendments a year, tell us those buckets, please.
Are you talking about operational versus capital, or I just want to make sure that I'm following your question?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so
Let's try that and we'll see if that's what it is.
yeah, so we do have 4 planned amendments for 2023. So this is the first one. Again, it's primarily roll forwards. The second one is really the opportunity for departments to put forth requests that weren't part of their original budget, either because they weren't aware that this was something that they might need. And so that will be coming at the end of June. The third and final is really more, it's really focused on finance to do cleanup to the budget. So to update revenue projections, and then make sure, I think last year, one of the things that we really saw was an issue was in fleet, their vehicle or their gasoline expenses were going through the roof. And so they had planned based on how many gallons they normally use, but we have to fuel our vehicles. We can't not have that there for them to do that. So that's one of the things that we would clean up. But when we're talking to departments, we usually like to separate things into 2 buckets. So we have our operational dollars, and then we have our CIP, our capital dollars. And then within operational, we have, again, your day-to-day operations, but then you have your personnel. And then within CIP, we have our annual CIP, so pavement restoration or parking lot restoration or playground replacement. That's something that we want to fund every single year so that we're investing in our infrastructure and replacing it when it's needed before it gets too far gone and you have even more expenses. So you've got the annual programs, then you have new CIP requests or amendments to current projects because we've seen cost escalations. And then we have our vehicles. So one of the things that's included in this, if you dig into the numbers, is we did transition. We had new vehicles being paid for out of individual department budgets and funds. We're transitioning all of that to Fund 20 so that all vehicle replacements are in Fund 20. So we are increasing the transfer from funds 01 and 02 into Fund 20 to fund those purchases, but we've also decreased the allocations within those specific budgets for those vehicle replacements.
Thank you, Mr. Mosley. Appreciate that. So at the 50,000 foot level, department heads and the rest of the staff, we recently had the budget kickoff for 2023, 2024, and into 2025. The priority is our number 1 goal, which is fiscal sustainability. And part of that this team and has had numerous conversations with council about that shift. And so the last decade has been 20 years on shoring up and 80% on new. And we are, over the next 3 years, focused on consistently getting us to 50-50 before we begin to shift the other direction. And with that, it requires discipline on department's behalf that we have 3 different buckets. We have obligations, critical. So we clearly delineate needs and wants. Wants is going to come in about 3 years. Right now, everything is mission critical, whether it's FTEs and or operations. So it's really the backbone of CCOB and making that adjustment. And Mr. Mosley and his team have done a great job of helping us structure in order to make that happen.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. We appreciate that too. Simplicity. It's good. All right. Any other questions? I think we were done with that. Then firstly, council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2023-33. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2023-33 by title?
11B, resolution number 2023-33, authorizing and approving the First Amendment to the City and County of Broomfield budget for the year 2023.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Is there? Oh, Councilmember Shaft.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that resolution number 2023-33 be adopted.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Henkel. Second. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move forward with the vote on resolution number 2023-33. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Henkel.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Marsh Holshin,
Yes.
Schaff,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Anderson. Yes. Cohen,
Yes.
Delgadillo.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Next is the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority's consideration of item 15A. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2023-35-UR by title?
15A, resolution number 2023-35-UR, authorizing and approving the First Amendment to the 2023 Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority budget.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Councilmember Henkel?
I move that resolution number 2023-35 UR be adopted.
Do we need the authorizing and approving the First Amendment to the 2023, or that was already read? Never mind. Never mind, my fault. Is there a second? Councilmember Lim? Second. Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll move forward to the vote on resolution number 2023-35-UR. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Jaworski. Leslie,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Marsh Holshin.
Yes.
Schaff,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Delgadillo,
Yes.
Henkel.
Yes. Thank you. That passes unanimously too. Seeing there's no further business before the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority, that meeting is adjourned. But there's more. Our final business item this evening is council's appointments to fill expiring terms and vacancies on Broomfield's various boards and commissions, as well as 2 brand new boards. Mayor Pro Tem Jaworski will help facilitate this portion of the agenda this evening. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. There is more, but this is a little more fun. So we get to do some positive appointments here for some very good boards. So to start off, I'd like to thank all of the residents who took time to apply and interview for a position on all of our boards and commissions. The fact that we had so many interested and qualified citizens is what makes Broomfield a great place to live. I say particularly for our Board of Health, we had an enormous amount of applications for that, and I think every one of them was very well qualified. So if you have applied and are not selected, or if you missed the application period this year, I encourage everyone to apply again next year, as even calendar years are the main recruitment periods. So this year, besides the Board of Health and our Charter Review Committee, most of the other boards that did have applications, these were filling vacant seats from previous years. So next year, there will be significant amount of open seats for, I think, probably every one of our boards. So I do encourage, again, anyone who does not get selected this year, or anyone who's listening or paying attention, and they're interested in something, to definitely keep an eye out next January, February, and apply again next year. So for this evening, the procedures regarding the election process to fill the positions on boards and commissions are set forth in section 6.1 of Council's Procedures and Rules of Order. In accordance with these procedures, the process tonight will be as follows. Nominees will be identified for each position. Council may nominate applicants as a slate if desired. It is also important to note that nominations do not require a second. If the number of nominees does not exceed the number of vacancies, council will proceed directly with the motion to appoint. If the number of nominees exceeds the number of vacancies, council will proceed to vote using our electronic voting system. Results of each round will be electronically presented. If none of the candidates receives the required number of votes to be elected on the first ballot, the candidate receiving the fewest votes will be dropped as a candidate, unless the elimination of such name or names in the cases of a tie vote would leave only one candidate for the office. This process will continue until the number of candidates needed for the openings receive the required number of votes to be elected. Following completion of the electronic balloting, a motion to appoint candidates by name will be necessary. We have 4 boards and commissions tonight that we are filling vacancies for, and they will be addressed in the order that they were listed in the staff memo. I will ask the city, county, or the city and county clerk if there are any additional information to provide.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members. Kateria Beta, Director of Information Technologies, and Joel Heine, Assistant City and County Attorney, will facilitate the voting tonight. The links to the voting forms were just emailed to you, so they should be at the top of your inbox. We appreciate your patience during the voting tonight. As you're aware, although prepared, Updates are made in real time. And we have a few items to note prior to voting. For the Board of Health, 33 applications were received for the Board of Health. Although noted as 10 in the memo, 11 of the 33 were selected to move forward with an in-person interview with council. And the 22 applicants were notified that they were not selected to move forward in the process. Tonight, council will vote from the 11 selected finalists. Charter Review Commission applicant Larry Hardin serves on the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment, and Land Use Review Commission applicant Kay Allen Orman serves on the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment. If either are selected for the Charter Review Commission or Land Use Review Commission, they will require an 8-vote majority to serve in the new positions because they are currently serving on other boards. The Neighborhood Board of Adjustment was not included in the January application because the vacancies did not occur until after the application went live. We contacted the applicants for the Land Use Review Commission to inquire if they would be interested in serving on the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment. The individuals for consideration tonight for the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment all confirmed their interest if not selected for the Land Use Review Commission. Personal Merit Commission applicant Peter Ballmers currently serves as an alternate. If he is selected, it creates a new alternate vacancy that council can fill with the other applicant. Scientific and Cultural Facilities District, Pavan is a minor and not eligible for the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District, so has been removed from your selection. And those are the items to note prior to your voting tonight.
Thank you. I think I'll make one correction too. I stated that there were 4 boards and commissions, but I think there's actually 11. Is that correct? Yeah, I don't know.
I gotta add them up, but yeah.
Yeah, there's more than 4, so I don't know. You need to update that in the script going forward. So more than 4. So we will now proceed with public comments. If there's anyone, what was it? 12. Even more, a bit more than 4. So if there's anyone who would like to be heard, please press *3, state your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. Or if there's anyone, I guess, here in person that would like to comment as well. It's like there's no one in person. And do we have anyone online? No one online. So then we will move forward with questions from city council members. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Is Council Member Delgadillo?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This is just a clarification question. So Ms. Clemens had some very helpful caveats for us. Can we be reminded of those before we vote on each of the positions? Because I did not remember all of that.
Yes. Not a problem.
Very good. Are there any other questions, comments, jokes? Councilmember Henkel?
I just have a comment that really it is true that when people, apply to these positions, we really received even just a ton in our Board of Health. Like if someone does not make the Board of Health tonight, I want to encourage all of you to still attend the meetings and provide input. I was just in awe of how many great applicants we had, not only on the Board of Health, but in our Charter Review Committee and many other, areas. And so you can still attend and still have input. And so I just really, I've never really said this before. I really do encourage people to come in and attend and give input. It's very important. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great comment. And every year I'm always also blown away by the quality of the applicants that we get for every position that's open. I did mention the Board of Health because we did get, I think it was mentioned 30-some applications for 5 spots. And I think almost all of them were well qualified. So any additional comments? Okay, so before we proceed with nominations, in previous years, council has decided to nominate the entire slate of applicants for all of the boards and commissions positions at the beginning. This kind of streamlines the process for us. So would anyone on council like to make those nominations? So we have Councilmember Schaaf down there. Yes, he is.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Pleasure to serve with you. I nominate all applicants on the 2023 boards and commissions master applicant list, except for the Board of Health. For the Board of Health, I nominate the 11 finalists.
Thank you.
No problem.
It's a pleasure to serve with you as well. Hearing that, we will now begin with the appointment of one alternate member to the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability. The term expiring March 31st, 2024. The applicants listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the ACES Committee are already nominated. Now we will move to the vote.
So voting is now open for this ballot.
Mine is giving me the circle of death. It's spinning, but I'll try again. I wonder if I have too many tabs open. That's what my husband always tells me. And I'm like, well, welcome to my brain. I wonder which Wi-Fi I chose. I'm on Chambers
Oh.
Wi-Fi. Who brought the music? Oh, okay. We have a very bored mayor all of a sudden.
Are you spinning?
Yeah. Let me close out my other tabs. I wonder if it's a Mac issue. And I'm on Chambers. I turn off my mic.
Yeah, I have to.
Nope, that's all the votes now.
So.
This vote appears to be unanimous for H.G. Parson. Yeah. So this vote appears to be unanimous for H.G. Parsa.
There a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I do move that H.G. Parsa be appointed as an alternate member to the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability to fill the term expiring March 31st, 2024, or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Shaft.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? We'll have to do a roll call vote. Councilmember Leslie's remote. So will the clerk please call the roll?
Leslie,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Schaff,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Delgadillo,
Yes.
Henkel,
Yes.
Jezerski.
Yes.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Parsa. Moving on, Mayor Pro Tem.
Moving on. So the next committee is the Arts, History, and Cultural Council, which has 3 vacancies. We will begin with the appointment of one member to serve the term expiring March 31st, 2026. The applicants listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Arts, History, and Cultural Council are already nominated. Now we will move to the vote for the member term expiring March 31st, 2026.
Vote is now open. Okay, so we don't have a clear majority here because 5 is only, is not beyond the 50%. We are going to remove the 2 candidates that received the lowest votes, the one that got 0 and the candidate that got 2 votes, and then revote.
While you're voting, I'm gonna float an idea, a motion to suspend the rules for roll call vote to, in the essence of time. We could just do acclamation vote, since Councilmember Leslie is virtually on standing by. We
Yeah.
would need a 2/3 majority if someone wanted to make the motion, second it, and then vote. All right, Councilmember Henkel,
So moved.
that work?
Yeah, that works. And then after we do an affirmation vote here, we'll just confirm Councilmember Leslie's vote.
Okay, is there a second? Councilmember Marshallson? Sorry.
Second.
Everybody's ready for that one. Okay, good. Any discussion? All in favor? And we have to do a roll call to do one more roll call. Thank you, Michelle, Ms. Parker.
Lim,
Yes.
Marshallson,
Yes.
Schaff,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Delgadillo,
Yes.
Henkel,
Yes.
Jazersky,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Lim. Oh, sorry. I've already got that.
So that passes unanimously. I think, thank you, Ms. Rogers, for the suggestion.
And then when we get to a vote, you can just do the all in favor, all opposed, and then ask Councilmember Leslie his vote on, and that's just on the motions to appoint.
Okay, perfect. Mayor Pro Tem, back to you.
I think we are waiting to vote, aren't we?
Oh, okay. Yes, we're waiting for the real-time tabulation.
Okay, vote is now open again. We are still waiting on one vote.
Got mine. Okay.
There we go. Okay. So it's Blim Hochberger is the winner here.
Thank you. So I guess I move that Patrick Blim Hockenberger be appointed as a member to the Arts, History, and Cultural Council to fill the term expiring March 31st, 2026, or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Shaw?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Councilmember Leslie, what is your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And congratulations. We got that one done. Okay.
Awesome. Moving on.
All right.
So next is the appointment of the one alternate member to serve a term expiring March 31st, 2024 on the Arts, History, and Cultural Council. Again, the applicants listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions Master Applicants List for the Arts, History, and Cultural Council are already nominated. And we will move to the vote for the alternate member expiring March 31st, 2024.
And that ballot is open.
Just a quick question or note. Is there a way to make sure that the results aren't posted until everyone's voted? I don't want to influence the results.
No, they have to be open and live as.
No, but I mean, while we're voting, before we're all completed voting, we
Yeah,
don't want the results posted. I think last time they were posted before 1 or 2 stragglers got in.
he's not wrong.
So I think it would be acceptable if they did the vote, you all look, and when we do have all the votes, then you put that screen up. So we have the vote cast is in public, but to Mayor Pro Tem's point, Councilmember Marshallson won't be influenced by Councilmember Schaff's vote.
Let's just keep rolling.
So it looks like that was Huffer had 6, right? Yeah. So it looks like Huffer is the winner here.
Okay, so
All
I
right.
move that.
Is there a motion, Mayor Pro Tem?
There is. I move that Lily Grace Huffer be appointed as the alternate member to the Arts, History and Cultural Council to fill the term expiring March 31st, 2024, until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Henkel?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And Councilmember Leslie, what is your vote?
I approve.
Thank you. All right, congratulations. I forgot her name, Lily Grace.
Lily Grace.
Lily Grace. Yay, okay.
All right, so the final appointment for this board this evening is one youth alternate member to serve a term expiring March 31st, 2024 on the Arts, History and Cultural Council. The applicants listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions Master Applicants List for the Arts, History and Cultural Council are already nominated. Now we will move to the vote for one youth alternate member, term expiring March 31st, 2024. Okay, so vote is in. Got a 5-5 tie.
Actually, no, you guys get to keep on voting. In perpetuity. So somebody,
The way the council
Wears
rules are
down.
written is it is incumbent upon a ballot vote to decide who's on the boards and commissions. So we discussed this with the mayor and the mayor pro tem, and council is encouraged to take another stab at a vote and maybe even one more, and then we'll revisit the issue.
Yeah.
Not yet. Let me prepare the.
Okay, it's open now.
what if two people change their vote and it ends up in a tie?
All right, so we have Abby Sterling this time.
All right, Abby Sterling. Is there a motion, Mayor Pro Tem?
I believe so. I move that Abby Sterling be appointed as the youth alternate member to the Arts, History and Cultural Council to fill the term expiring March 31st, 2024, or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Henkel?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And Councilmember Leslie, what is your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations, Abby Sterling,
Yay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, we are moving on to our big one tonight, the Board of Health. So the next committee is the Board of Health. I want to take a moment here to remind the community that council approved an independent Board of Health at the end of 2022. This is our first time making appointments, and we were, as we already mentioned, very impressed by the quality and number of applications received. Once again, council received 33 applications, offering a great deal of depth and breadth of experience. Council offered in-person interviews to 11 finalists. This evening, council's vote and motion for the inaugural appointments will be from the finalist list. We will now begin with the appointment of 3 members to serve 5-year terms on the Board of Health. The applicants listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Board of Health are already nominated. Now we will move to the vote for the 3 members to serve 5-year terms.
Right, and that ballot's open.
And once again, you have the results showing there, so I would ask to keep those, again, secret until everyone's done voting.
Okay, we'll take that off until all voting is done.
Thank you.
Is the theme from House? Remember House MD? Thought it was appropriate. Maybe not. I take requests. I know you have one for me, right, Councilmember Cohen? No? Okay. What? Oh, yeah, it's a good one.
Oh, sorry.
I'm so excited about this.
Okay, so we have several tied at 5. So we're going to remove all of the candidates that got no votes and all of the candidates that got 2 votes and then revote.
Could you show the graph that shows who got how many votes? There you go.
So your next ballot's just going to have 4 candidates on it. Candidate Valdez, Grind,
Ginde.
Lustgarten, or sorry, Gindi, Lustgarten, and Seedorf.
So this is just the candidates that received 5 votes?
Correct.
Okay. No,
No, we're not ready yet.
It's not letting me vote here.
Yeah, Bruce is not live yet.
Oh, okay.
Correct. Remove Freeland. Garb.
Okay,
Remove Rutland.
okay.
Remove Stoneburner.
Mhm,
Cutchin remove.
mhm,
Colony.
mhm.
And remove Razavi Shearer. Gindi, Lustgarten, and Seedorf. Okay, that ballot's now open again.
That is a good thing.
We got 4, 30 votes.
Okay, go ahead and show that. All right, so the 3 are Gindi, Lustgarten, and Seedorf.
Excellent.
Yeah, can you keep that up there? So Mayor, I move that Savita Ginde, Zach Lustgarten, and Aaron Seedorf each be appointed to the Board of Health to fill the term expiring March 31st, 2028, or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Marsh Holsham?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Correct.
All in favor? Any opposed? Councilmember Leslie, what is your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. So congratulations to Dr. Ginde, and Zach and Ms. Seedorf. Welcome to the Board of Health. Moving on to the other terms.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Moving on, we will now do the appointment of two members to serve 3-year terms to expire March 31st, 2026. The applicants listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions Master Applicants List for the Board of Health are already nominated. We will move to the vote for the two members to serve 3-year terms.
And that ballot is open. Okay, so you have one candidate, it's Valdez, that has received a majority vote. We are going to remove all of the candidate that got 0 votes and all of the candidates that got 1 vote, and then revote selecting 1 for your second position. Did you show the spreadsheet? Just a second.
No, you see what one do I need to?
Arvin,
Yeah. We'll look at that a little bit.
Valdez.
Okay.
Poleni. Already, so that leaves you. Richard, McCutcheon, and Rosati. Yep, okay. All right, that vote is open for the second round of this ballot. Oh, hang on. Yep.
Oh, wait, I did.
Nope. Okay, we're good. We're good.
Need one.
Yes, it should be 1.
Okay. Okay, please refresh. Thank you.
Okay, so 2 candidates tied with 3, and then 2 candidates tied with 2. So we are going to remove the 2 candidates that received 2 votes and vote again.
And Councilmember Chef, I would say if you can figure out a way to do this by ranked choice voting next time, I would encourage you to do that.
Can I respond, Mayor?
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So I did look at this and it has to be proportional, and proportional is very difficult to figure out. And it's very complicated. So if it was one person, totally easy. But multiple people, it'd be a winner, multi-winner district, which is much more complicated. So it would take us quite a while to do.
You have 12 months.
Got it.
And this ballot is open.
We'll see.
All right, so the other one is Elizabeth McCutcheon.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, is there a motion?
Sure. I move that Eugenia Valdez and Elizabeth McCutcheon each be appointed to the Board of Health to fill the term expiring March 31st, 2026, or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Ward?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? And all in favor? Any opposed? Councilmember Leslie, what say you?
I approve.
Thank you. Well, then congratulations to Gina Valdez and Elizabeth McCutcheon completing our 5-member inaugural Board of Health. And I am just, this moment is really big. And I'm really proud of us, how we're moving forward and becoming a real county, a real Board of Health. So let's just. Okay, moving on.
Agreed.
Charter Review Committee.
Yes, Charter Review Committee is next. Council by resolution created a Charter Review Committee to review the board charter and provide recommendations to council on or before December 1st, 2023. This is not a permanent committee. Next is the appointment of 5 members to the Charter Review Committee for terms expiring in December, unless extended by council. The applicants for the Charter Review Committee listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List are already nominated, and we will move to the vote.
Yeah. All right, the ballot is open. Okay, so we're going to share the results now. We did get 4 of the 5 votes. The Those were Patterson, Matthews, Lavelle, and Taylor.
Awesome.
So this means we will revote for one, removing the candidates that got 0 and 1 vote. Sorry, we forgot to show the spreadsheets. We're showing that now. Those are the votes.
We just wanted to remind you that on the Charter Review Commission that Larry Hardwick, I'm tongue-tied on his name, I apologize. He also serves on the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment, so if he is selected, he will require an 8-vote majority to serve on the Charter Review as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if we mentioned that or not. It's been council's policy within the last few appointments that we only appoint one person to one board, given the incredible breadth of applicants that we get. So we did have to, I think we implemented it as the supermajority to appoint someone to a second board.
Okay, so this ballot is now open for the one final position. All right, so your fifth board member is Leonard Giuliano.
Wonderful. Thank you. Is there a motion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, there is. I move that Seth Patterson, Cheryl Lavelle, David Matthews, Sam Taylor, and Leonard Giuliano each be appointed to the Charter Review Committee to fill the terms expiring December 1st, 2023, unless extended by council.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Shaw?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And Councilmember Leslie, what's your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, congratulations to Mr. Patterson, Mr. Matthews, Ms. Lavelle, Mr. Taylor, and Mr. Giuliano. Thank you for stepping up to serve. Back to you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Excellent. So next, council is going to appoint 2 council members to the Charter Review Committee. We will now proceed with nominations. A council member may nominate themselves or more than one individual, but I do ask that you make each nomination separately. As a reminder, nominations do not require a second. Are there any nominations? Councilmember Holshin.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to nominate myself for this committee.
You are so nominated. Councilmember Ward.
And I would like to nominate myself for this committee.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
Self-nominate if you're interested. Throw your name in. Councilmember Anderson?
Oh,
I'm sorry, I just hijacked your
No,
meeting.
that's all good.
Sorry.
Councilmember Anderson. Councilmember Anderson?
I would like to nominate, Councilmember Devon Schaff.
Okay. Any other nominations? We'll say going once, going twice. Seeing no more nominations, we have 3 applicants for these 2 positions. Councilmember Holshin, Councilmember Ward, and Councilmember Schaff.
All right, and that ballot is now open.
And always remember, these meetings are open, so any council member can attend regardless of their, result. And I know.
I think that's a good point. And also I would imagine the community is welcome to attend as well.
Exactly. There will be public comment, lots of opportunities for community engagement.
All right, so the votes are in and they are council members Marsh, Holshin, and Ward.
All right, congratulations. Do we need to do a vote on that?
You do.
I believe we do. So I would nominate the council members Marsh Holshin and Councilmember Ward to appoint. I would motion, it's not in my script.
I know,
And
that's why I
motion
was
to
a little
appoint
thrown
both council members Ward and council members Marsh Holshin as the council members for the Charter Review Committee.
Not on my script. Am I too far?
No, it's in the
Mine don't have pages. I'm on a scroll. Okay.
4 or 5 lines up. Is there a second?
Okay, I'll just pair it back. Is there a second? One more.
It's all in purple.
It's a long script. Tap it in. That was for the. Yeah. This is the Board of Health. Anyway, I know what I have to say. So is there a second? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I second.
Oh, dear. Thank you. Is there any discussion? See, when I check out, I really check out. Doesn't happen much, but I just did. So all in favor? Any opposed? And Councilmember Leslie, what is your vote?
Yes.
All right, thank you. That's unanimous. Okay. Now moving back to you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. We are now moving to the Land Use Review Committee. And we have 1 alternate member for this position for a term expiring March 31st, 2024 on the Land Use Review Commission. The applicants for the Land Use Review Commission listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions master applicant list are already nominated. We will move to the vote.
And just a reminder on this one as well, K. Allen Orman currently serves on the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment. So if selected, he will require the 8-vote majority as well.
That ballot's open. Waiting on one still. It's Councilmember Leslie.
I like Taylor Swift.
We're still waiting on Councilmember Leslie at this point.
Councilmember Leslie, are you still with us? Is he on the Zoom? He is? Is he on the camera though?
I'll text him. Oh, got it. Well, Ms. Rogers, what should we do?
He can be absent for
this
this
vote?
vote.
Okay, yeah, I would.
Well, so if we're gonna. So we had one candidate with 4, so that's not enough. We are going to remove all the candidates that got 0, and then the next lowest, the 2 candidates that got 1. So we'll redo the vote between Ramar and Peterman. All right, that ballot is now open. All right, so we've got all the votes in. It's Bruce Peterman.
Mayor, I will move that Bruce Peterman be appointed as an alternate member to the Land Use Review Commission to fill the term expiring March 31st, 2024, or until a successor is appointed.
Oh, yeah. Is there a motion? That was it?
That was the motion.
Okay, is there a second? Councilmember Hinkle.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Councilmember Leslie is absent, so that passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on.
Okay, moving on to the local licensing authority. This is the appointment of one alternate member to serve a term expiring March 31st, 2024. The applicants for the local licensing authority are listed on the 2023 boards and commissions master applicant list. And they are already nominated. We will move to the vote.
And just to jump in very quickly, you only have two candidates on this ballot, and Bruce Peterman is one of those two who was just nominated to the Land Use Review Commission. So again, if you were to vote him in, it would require a separate vote of 8 of city council to allow him to serve on 2 commissions at the same time.
Who is the other candidate?
Sheila Parson. We're still waiting on 2 votes.
Let me know if that's me.
It's not you.
Folks, this should be the easiest one we have all night.
Okay, that's all of them now. It's Sheila Parson.
All right. Is there a motion, Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Sheila Parson be appointed as the alternate member to the local licensing authority to fill the term expiring March 31st, 2024, or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Marshall.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Now, congratulations, Ms. Parsons. Sorry, Councilmember Leslie, what's your vote?
I feel like I'm ignored here. My vote is
no,
yes.
We couldn't connect with you on the last vote. I am
I
so
know.
sorry.
I'm in and out a little bit, but thank you for bearing with me.
Oh, no worries. We understand. So what is your vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to
All
the
right.
Neighborhood Board of Adjustment.
Okay, Neighborhood Board of Adjustment. This is the appointment of 2 members to serve terms expiring March 31st, 2024 on the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment. The vacancies occurred after the application recruitment for boards and commissions. Applicants of the Land Use Review Commission or Committee were asked if they would like to serve on the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment if they weren't selected for the LIRC. The applicants agreed. Therefore, council can consider those applicants as well as those who have already been nominated.
So the ballot is now open. I will give you the same warning about Bruce Peterman I just gave you.
No. So we just want.
All right, so we do have 2 selected in this first round, and they are candidates Michelle Gupton and Tom Ramar.
Mayor, I will move that Tom Ramar and Michelle Gupton each be appointed as a member to the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment to fill the terms expiring March 31st, 2024, or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Ward?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And Councilmember Leslie, what is your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Congratulations, y'all. Moving on to the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee.
Yes, the next board for council's review this evening is the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee. The appointment of one youth member to serve a term expiring March 31st, 2024 on OSTAC. The youth applicants for OSTAC listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions master applicant list are already nominated, and we will move to the vote.
Right, and that ballot is open. All right, we're waiting on Councilmember Leslie. Okay, so Madeline Fernandez is the candidate.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem. Nomination?
Madeline Fernandez be appointed as a youth member to the Open Space and Trails Committee to fill the term expiring March 31st, 2024, or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Henkel? Second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Councilmember Leslie, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Congratulations, Madeline.
We will now move forward with the appointment of one youth alternate member to serve a term expiring March 31st, 2024 on OSTAC. Again, the applicants are listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions master applicant list. They have already been nominated, so we will move forward with the vote.
Okay, and that ballot is open. Okay, we're gonna have to run that again. We will get rid of the candidates that got 0 votes and the candidate that got 1 vote. And so we'll just rerun that with River Parento and Ava Falsling. All right, and that ballot is now open again. All right, so we have a 5-5 tie.
That hardly ever happens.
Yeah, we'll prepare it if that's what council wants. We'll prepare another round.
Please.
All right, that ballot is now open again. Okay, it's River Parento.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a motion?
Yes, I move that River Parento be appointed as a youth alternate to the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee to fill the term expiring March 31st, 2024, or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Ward?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Councilmember Leslie, what's your vote, please?
I approve.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Congratulations, kids. Next to Prac.
All right, moving on to the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee. The appointment of one youth member to serve a term expiring March 31st, 2024 on the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee. The applicants for the PRSSAC, I'm not sure how to even pronounce that. PRSAC are listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List. They've already been nominated and we will move forward with the vote.
And just as a reminder, council, earlier tonight, you did nominate Abby Sterling to the Arts, History, and Cultural Council as a youth alternate. So if she is nominated tonight, nominated for this position, it will require a supermajority 8 vote.
Didn't Madeline also get an appointment? And,
Madeline Fernandez just did. That's correct.
right. So who's left? Ava and Daniel?
Correct.
Okay.
And you tied again, 5-5. Yeah, you'll still need to show the spreadsheet. Yeah. Crawl and all right, and that ballot's open again.
PrAC doesn't really vote, do they? PrSAC, sorry. Do they vote?
But it's advisory. It's like OSTAC.
Okay, so there's some consensus.
Yeah.
Decisions. True.
All right, so it's Ava Falsing.
And so that's the youth member term.
Correct.
Well,
So
we have to vote for the alternate then, or can it be just an appointment for the other candidate?
Well, you would still need to vote because Abby Sterling and Madeline Fernandez are still on the slate.
Okay,
So Mayor, I do move that Ava Falsing be appointed as the youth member to the Parks, Recreation and Senior Services Advisory Committee to fill the term expiring March 31st, 2024, or until a successor is appointed.
thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? Councilmember Schaaf?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And Councilmember Leslie, what's your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Back to you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, we will now need to move forward with the appointment of one alternate youth member to serve a term expiring March 31st, 2024 on the Parks, Recreation and Senior Services Advisory Committee. The applicants for the PSAC listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List are nominated, and we will move for the votes.
And that ballot is open. We are still waiting on 2 entries. There you go. Okay, it's unanimous. David Kroll,
Is there a motion, Mayor
or
Pro Tem?
Daniel, sorry.
I move that Daniel Crowell be appointed as the youth alternate to the Parks, Recreation and Senior Services Advisory Committee to fill the term expiring March 31st, 2024, or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Henkel?
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And Councilmember Leslie, what's your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Next.
Awesome. Next, moving on, Personal Merit Commission. We'll be appointing one member to serve a term expiring March 31st, 2026 on the Personal Merit Commission. I haven't had this in a long time. Yeah, bring it back to bad memories. That was 8:45, not 9:45 though. That was earlier. So the applicants for the PMC listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List are already nominated, and we will move on to the vote.
And this is a reminder that Peter Bulmer currently serves as an alternate. If he is selected, it creates a new vacancy and the other applicant can be appointed as the alternate then.
Okay.
And that ballot is open. Okay, so it is Peter Bulmer for the regular position.
Yeah.
Is there a motion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I would move that Peter Bulmer be appointed as a member to the Personal Merit Commission for a term expiring March 31st, 2026, or until a successor is appointed. Then also, can I move that Michael Gordon be appointed as the, I don't know what the term expires, but as the alternate, replacing Mr. Bormart?
Yeah, is there a second? Councilmember Cohen? That would be nice. We're audio. So, any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Councilmember Leslie, what's your vote?
Yes.
All right, so we got that squared away. Is that okay that we did it that way and skipped a vote? That was obvious.
I think we're good.
We're good. Okay, they're deliberating now. I was worried. Here we go.
We're just going to keep moving.
Yeah, keep going.
Next one is and the last one for the night is the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District. This is the appointment of one member to serve a term expiring March 31st, 2026. Applicants for the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District are listed on the 2023 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List and have already been nominated. We will move to the vote.
And just as a reminder, council, you did earlier tonight nominate H.G. Parsa to the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability.
Your name is very familiar.
Our current SCFD person is Suzanne Crawford, right?
That is correct.
The alternate, is this the?
There's
We only got one.
she's
Yeah,
the
her,
one person that does all the grant stuff. Yeah,
all right, so that ballot's open. We've got 6 in.
And I'm assuming that Ms. Crawford isn't term limited. I know we also, I don't know if we ever implemented it, but we did discuss at one point term limits for our board members. I think it was 2 terms.
We would have to look that up just to double check.
I think she's only done one.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Mm-mm. It's a highly specialized position too.
All right, so we are still waiting on Councilmember Leslie, and we're also looking up that answer just to confirm.
You have my vote now.
All right, Councilmember Leslie's vote has been cast.
All right, so the vote is for Suzanne Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a motion?
I will move that Suzanne Crawford be appointed as a member to the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District for a term expiring March 31st, 2026, or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Henkel?
Second, was that a shankle?
I know, it's like both at the same time almost. I just kind of switched it. Shankle.
That's fine,
Is
Shankle.
there
Yeah.
any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. Oh, Councilmember Leslie, what's your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yep, so that wraps it up. I do want to thank everyone again for everyone that applied for a position on one of these boards. The clerk's office will reach out to all the applicants with an update and the next steps. Mayor, back to you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem. The city and county attorney's report is next. Ms. Rogers, do you have a report?
No report, just a quick shout out to that Three Musketeer group. Great job.
No, y'all, thank you. Well done. I just kind of breezed right by it, but we appreciate the work that goes into this. Thank you. Then city and county managers report is next. Ms. Hoffman?
No, same shout out. I can remember 15 years ago having to run up and down this dais being the note collector during all of the votes.
It was paper ballot?
It was paper ballots.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and it was like a 4.5 hour endeavor. And then they went to color coded paper and so, yes. So thank
Wow,
you to you
we've come a
three
long
for
way.
saving from running up and down the dais.
Thank you. There is no legislative update or business before the Arista Local Improvement District Board of Directors this evening, and item 15A was reviewed earlier. There are no special reports or requests for future action this evening, and that concludes the items on the agenda. Is there any other business to come before the council? There being no further business, the council meeting is adjourned.